Yeah, I didn't. I'm gonna have to delete that. The previous one. Oh well. Yeah, I have. I'll just reiterate what I said in the first go around. Um, I have a paper that I need to write that is minimum 9 pages, and yeah, hold on. Seems like there's some other settings that need to be fixed. Where is this? I don't know. In any case, um, I have a paper I need to write that's minimum 9 pages based off of one of Plutarch's things. I don't really know what they're called. I have a lot of options to choose from that my prof has pre-selected for the class to choose from. I think there's like over 30 different options at least. I did not look through all of them, but I just kind of stuck on one of the first ones I saw. There's not, I don't really have that much of a preference. I could write about anything equally poorly. Um, so the one I chose was Moralia, whether land or sea animals are clever. Um, but I'll be honest, if it's not to my liking and I don't think I can write enough about it, we can just read another one. Um, is the download done yet for the book? Roughly 2 minutes left. Okay. Still need to do some setup, but I mean, I could probably do this. This. There we go. Okay. All right. I can work with this. I should also probably do an audio check on my end. I'll pull the stream on my phone while we wait. Yeah, this paper, technically it's supposed to be due tomorrow, but due to scheduling, I got delayed. And thank God for that. I had no time over the past few weeks to even touch this thing. So yeah, I really need to work on it. Which, I mean, if it's still not done by next Friday, I guess maybe I'll stream me talking to myself about like reading over my essay. I don't know. I'm gonna have to restart my phone. It's not charging for some reason. That's bullshit. Okay, quick audio check now. Let's see. We shall see. The music is way louder than I am. Hold on. I'm gonna turn that down a bit, and then we'll see. I mean, it sounds a bit better. Also, there's insane delay on the stream on my end of it between my phone, so it's taking me this a while. Um, let's see. Jesus Christ, was it like 30-second delay? Alright, this should be fine so long as I actually project my voice a little. Oh, it sounded a bit quiet because I wasn't earlier. But oh well. Just gotta remember to do that. In any case, download should be done. Actually, just in case this opens in the wrong tab, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, it did in fact open in the wrong tab. Okay, so do this, do that. That's set up. Okay. Oh shit. I forgot to turn off Steam then. God damn it. So what would have been shown? The PDF and how to set up a Spigot server. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not taking down the stream again. Because of that. Why do I hear myself in the background? Oh no, that's not myself, that's the video. Okay, hold on. I hear someone talking, that's the Spigot server thing. Okay. Okay. So I can turn this back on, Studio on, turn this on, set it to this. Yeah, the cropping's all bad because it's a different formatting. Let's fix that. Oh damn, this thing's huge. Okay, it's not going to be cropped amazingly. Left is that side, so I can crop 600 and move it down. And the right side, like 200, I guess, you know? Okay. I can go and do that. I can do that. Yeah, it looks fine enough. Okay. Here we are. That should work. I hope. Yeah, I think that works. Alright, let's see. Where's the one I'm looking for? Free 11. However, land or sea animals are clever. Gonna be me scrolling a lot. What page is this? Once it loads. Can it load, please? I clicked on a page. Can it take me to there? Now it's still gonna be on like 30. Okay, now there we go. It's 31, so should be around 320-ish should be the page I'm looking for. It's 304. That's the end of Is Fire Water more useful? Here we are. Whether land or sea animals are clever. Des Soletia Animalium. Introductions. There can be little doubt that Plutarch composed this pleasant work from Commentarii, derived not merely from Aristotle, mentioned specifically in 965 D and quoted often, but also from various other compendia, the remains of which are to be seen in Aelian's and Pliny's natural histories and elsewhere. In fact, if one reads Plutarch and Aelian and Pliny side by side, one may acquire the impression that they had before them substantially the same sources, and that these are numerous. Is this important? I don't think so. Where, as Pliny and Aelian appear to adopt nearly everything their authorities may have offered for their were writing factual commentaries, Plutarch, as always, selects. I reconnected and I resized the PDF on the stream's end. Still awful to see because it's a PDF, but I'll take what I can get. It is possible in some cases that Plutarch's... Which are... what? The fuck is that supposed to say? MSS? Which are not good and also contain lacinae may have been interpolated from aliens, and the reverse is likewise possible. This is a very difficult matter, but the hope may be entertained that some main sources of Plutarch and Aelian, if not of Pliny, and the as yet unassessed evidence of Philo, may eventually be disentangled for substantial sections. Though this is not the place to attempt such a feat. The title is not well chosen since the victory is awarded to neither side. The real point of the dialogue seems to be in its second as well as its first part that all animals of whatever provenance are intelligent. Am I reading the actual Plutarch Morale or am I reading someone's dissection on it? Because I could still use this as a source, but I do need to read the thing. I hope I downloaded the right thing. Wait. Hope I did. The title is not. I already read that. The occasional bantering tone may serve to indicate that we have before us something of a school exercise from Plutarch's own academy, with perhaps the first draft of a second part composed by pupils. Note the carefully established details. The contest will take place at a fixed time, 960B and 963B, for their fellow pupils and a specially appointed judge. 965 CE, more or less elaborate preparation has been made by contestants. 960B, 975D. Because of occasion, the school has been granted a holiday. Hold on. So this is quite clearly someone's dissection. I see, someone's dissection and then the thing. Okay, so we'll keep reading. Hold on, I might as well bring the mic closer. I might as well. Okay. It's a bit odd. But I mean, it should work a bit better, and it should pick up my voice nicer as well. In the first part, chapters 1 to 8, the author demonstrates through the authoritarian voice. I can't believe I pronounced it that way. The author demonstrates through the Why can't I pronounce that word? Authoritarian voice of his own father that the Stoics, insofar as they affirm their rationality of animals, contradict their own tenets. The second part proves that animals of all kinds are rational, chapters 9 through 36. The last small section, while refusing to award first honors in the debate, appears to contain Plutarch's exhortation to his pupils to continue to fight against the Stoics. For an excellent summary with sympathetic comments, see E.R. Dodd's Greece and Rome 2, 1932 and 1933, pages 104 to 105. I might actually take a look at that, use it as a source, maybe.
D'Agostino and others have shown that there is little originality in Plutarch's animal psychology, while not denying our author considerable vivacity in presentation. While it is true that whole sections, like 976 AD, are drawn from the identical source, that Alien, De Natura Animalium, 8, 4 to 6, I assume that's volume. Would that be volume 8 or volume 3? In chapters 4 to 6, I assume. Used, yet one has only to compare the use these authors have made of precisely the same material to recognize the great superiority of Plutarch. The principal sources have been disputed. Chrysippus, Theophrastus, Hagnon, Alexander of Myndus, Juba, Xenocrates, would it be Socrates? Xenocrates have all been suggested, but there can be little doubt, as with the Tranquillite and many of our works, that a considerable variety of sources have been utilized. Now that Schleifer, that's not how you pronounce that. I can see the I don't know what the symbol's called, but it's the thing above the A in that word. It's probably not pronounced how I think it is. Or how you would in English if you were to disregard that. Has demonstrated that Plutarch had himself read and meditated. Okay, my eyes apparently aren't working correctly. That Plutarch had himself read and meditated upon great sections of classical poetry, critics may perhaps be more willing to allow our author first-hand familiarity with a wider range of prose and works of reference as well. It is by no means impossible that the work is incomplete in our... Okay, what does that mean? MSS, what does that mean? What does it mean? I'm pretty sure that's MSS. Manuscripts, it's... okay. That the work is incomplete in our manuscripts, there are at least several demonstrable lacunae. I should probably know what lacunae means too, I've just been reading it. I don't know what that means. An absent part, especially in a book or other piece of writing, often referring to an ancient manuscript or similar. I'm assuming that's what it's referring to. Missing sections, basically. Yeah, so it is by no means impossible that the work is incomplete in our manuscripts. There are at least several demonstrable lacunae, and it is possible that it was considerably longer, may even have justified its title when it left Plutarch's hands. As for the date of a dialogue, the terminus post quem is AD 70, not 79, as it cannot be certainly inferred from 974a that Vespasian was then dead. It is probably a work of Plutarch's youth, preceding in any case that lives in the Symposiacs. That's not how you read that at all. Symposiacs. It may well date from Plutarch's anti-Stoic period, which produced the De Face, the De Communibus Entities. That's really hard to read considering how small the font is in the jank scan of a book. It's hard to tell if it's I's or L's. And the other anti-Chrysipian polemics. It has much in common with the Gryllus and the fragments of the Asucarnium and some correspondence with the Amatorius. It may, in fact, have been written during nearly the same period as that in which the elder Pliny, whose preface is dated AD 77, was compiling his own natural history. I'm gonna see if I could edit the layout a bit, see if maybe I can move this over. No, it doesn't matter, you can't see Sakya either way. Alright, I'm just gonna leave it then. Alright, next page. The citations into Eri Thompson's Oxford translation of Aristotle's Historia Animalium are somewhat inaccurate and inconsistent, being, as he says, compiled at various times and at long intervals during many years. Did someone really just throw shade at another person's translation during their write-up? Okay. Um, Nevertheless, the work is of great value. Okay, so it's not just shade, there's praise too. Nevertheless, the work is of great value, and it may be hoped that the notes in this edition that rely on it, and these are many, have been adequately sifted. Also to be constantly and gratefully consulted are Thompson's A Glossary of Greek Fishes, Oxford 1947, and A Glossary of Greek Birds, second edition, Oxford 1936. There will be many references to Thompson's Aristotle, but if a creature in question is a bird or a fish, it is to be understood that supplementary and often corrective material is to be found in the glossaries. There is further a tribute of admiration due to A.W. Mayer's LCL edition of Oppian, with its exhaustive notes from Rackham, LCL Pliny, Volume 3, Books 8 to 11 is very interesting on the text, but has also completely denied himself the privilege of citing parallel passages. The debunking of many of Plutarch's stories, if such a task is necessary, has been pleasantly done in the leisurely course of Bertrand Evans' The Natural History of Nonsense, New York 1946. It should be added, however, that modern scientific speculation is approaching somewhat closer to one of Plutarch's main tenets. If one may judge from such a work as W.C. Alley's Cooperation Among Animals, New York 1951, a revision of his earlier The Social Life of St. Denis. What? Oh, a revision of his earlier The Social Life of Animals. And on the Thesis of Animal Intelligence, see Evans himself, page 173. And a 40 cited there, note 1. Both the translation and the notes of this and the following essays have benefited immeasurably from an exhaustive criticism generously given them by Professor Alfred C. Andrews of the University of Miami, Florida. He has, in fact, supplied a number of valuable notes and also the appendix, a classified zoological index. It must be understood, however, that any errors remaining are to be attributed solely to the editor. The dialogue is number 147 in the Catalogue of Lamprias. According to this document, Plutarch wrote another work, number 135, on the same subject. Do beasts possess reason? But number 127, Ilepi. I can't read that. I straight up can't read that. Is probably the same as our Grillis, the following dialogue in this edition. Abbreviations used in citing modern authors. Yeah, okay. Then a few more, not accidentally started writing. There's the Greek, and then it alternates. Okay, so now I skip every other page, or at least I think that's Greek. It might be Latin or some other language. I can't read it nonetheless, so we'll be using the English pages. Whether land or sea animals are more clever, I added more on my own, are cleverer, sorry. The speakers in this dialogue are Autobulus, Soclarus, Opetatus, Aristimus, Phaedimus, and Heracleon. When Leonidas was asked what sort of a person he considered Tyrtaeus to be, he replied, "A good poet to whet the souls of young men, on the ground that by means of verses the poet inspired in young men keenness, accompanied by ardor and ambition, whereby they sacrificed themselves freely in battle. And I am very much afraid, my friends, that the praise of hunting, which was read aloud to us yesterday, may so immoderately inflame our young men who like the sport, that they will come to consider all other occupations as of minor, or of no importance, and concentrate on this. As a matter of fact, I myself caught the old fever all over again." In spite of my years and I myself caught the old fever all over again, in spite of my years and longed, like Euripides' Phaedo, to halloo the hounds and chase the dappled deer. So moved was I by the discourse as it brought its solid and convincing arguments to bear. Now this is from Soclarus. Exactly so, Autobulus. That reader yesterday seemed to have roused his rhetoric from its long disuse to gratify the young men and share their vernal mood. I was particularly pleased with his introduction of gladiators and his argument that it is a good reason as any to applaud hunting, that after diverting to itself most of our natural or acquired pleasure in armed combats between human beings, it affords an innocent spectacle of skill and intelligent courage pitted against witless force and violence. It agrees with that passage of Euripides. Slight is the strength of men, but through his mind resource he subdues the dread. Tribes of a deep and races bred on earth and in the air. Back to Autobolus. Yet that is the very source, my dear Soclarus, from which they say insensibility spread among men, and a sort of savagery that learns the taste of slaughter on its hunting trips, and has grown accustomed to feel no repugnance for the wounds and gore of beasts, but to take pleasure in their violent death. I don't know why I grew my voice like that. The next step is like what happened in Athens. The first man put to death by the 30 was inserted a former who was said to deserve it, and so was the second and the third. But after that they went on, step by step, until they were laying hands on honest men and eventually did not spare even the best of citizens. Just so the first man to kill a bear or a wolf won praise, and perhaps some coward pig was condemned as suitable to slay, because it had tasted the sacred meal placed before it. So from that point, as they now went on to eat the flesh of deer and hare and antelope, men were introduced to the consumption of sheep, and in some places of dogs and horses. The tame goose and a dove upon the hearth, as Sophocles says, were dismembered and carved for food, not that hunger compelled men as it does weasels and cats, but for pleasure and as an appetizer. Thus the brute and the natural lust to kill in man were fortified and rendered inflexible to pity, while gentleness was, for the most part, deadened. It was in this way, on the contrary, that the Pythagoreans, to inculcate humanity and compassion, made a practice of kindness to animals, for habituation has a strange power to lead men onward, by a gradual familiarization of their feelings. Well, we have somehow fallen unawares into a discussion not unconnected with what we said yesterday, nor yet with the argument that is presently to take place today. Yesterday, as you know, we proposed the thesis that all animals partake in one way or another of reason and understanding, and thereby offered our young hunters a field of competition, not lacking in either instruction or pleasure, the question whether land or sea animals have superior intelligence. This argument, it seems, we shall today adjudicate if Aristomus and Vedimus stand by their challenges. For Aristomus put himself at his comrade's disposal to advocate the land as producers of animals of superior intelligence, while the other will be the pleader for the sea. Soclarus again. They'll stand by their word, Autobolus. They'll be here any minute now. Early this morning I observed them both preparing for the fray. But, if you like, before the contest begins, let us review the discussion of whatever topics are germane to our conversation of yesterday, but were not then discussed either because no occasion offered, or since we were in our cups were treated too lightly. I thought, in fact, that I caught the reverberation of a material object from the Stoa. Just as the immortal is opposed to the mortal, and the imperishable to the perishable, and of course the incorporeal to the corporeal. Just so if there is rationality, the irrational must exist as its opposite and counterpart. This alone, among all pairings, must not be left incomplete and mutilated. Autobolus. But whoever, my dear Soclarus, maintains that while rationality exists in the universe, there is nothing irrational. For there is a plentiful abundance of irrational in all things that are not endowed with a soul. We need no other sort of counterpart for the rational. Everything that is soulless, and has no reason or intelligence, is by definition in opposition to that which, together with the soul, possesses also reason and understanding. Yet suppose someone were to maintain a nature that must not be left maimed, but why is that there twice? That part of nature which is endowed with a soul should have its irrational as well as rational aspect. Someone else is bound to maintain that nature endowed with a soul must have both an imaginative and an unimaginative part, and both a sentient and an insentient. They want nature, they seem to have these counteractive and contraposed positives and negatives of the same kind counterbalanced, as it were. But if it is ridiculous to require an antithesis of sentient and insentient within the class of living things, or an antithesis of imaginative and unimaginative, seeing that it is the nature of every creature with a soul to be sentient and imaginative from the hour of its birth, so he also is unreasonable who demands of division of living into the rational and an irrational part of that too, when he is arguing with men who believe that nothing is endowed with sensation which does not also partake in intelligence, and that there is no living thing which does not naturally possess both opinion and reason, just that it I can't do that any longer. Fuck. Sorry, I should have muted when I coughed there. Just as it has sensation and appetite. For nature, which they rightly say does everything with some purpose, and to some end, did not create a sentient creature merely to be sentient, when something happens to it. No, for there are in the world many things friendly to it, many also hostile, and it could not suffer for a moment if it had not learned to give the one sort a wide berth while freely mixing with the other. It is, to be sure, sensation that enables each creature to recognize both kinds, but the act of seizing or pursuing that ensue upon the perception of what is beneficial, as well as the eluding or fleeing of what is destructive or painful, by no means occur in creatures naturally incapable of some sort of reasoning and judging, remembering and attending. Those beings, then, which you deprive of all expectation, memory, design, or preparation, and of all hopes, fears, desires, or griefs, they'll have no use for eyes or ears either, even though they will have them. Indeed, it would be better to rid them of all sensation or imagination that has nothing to make use of it, rather than to know toil and distress and pain, while not possessing any means of averting them. There is, in fact, a work of Strato, the natural philosopher, which proves that it is impossible to have sensation at all without some action in the intelligence. Often it is true, while we are busy reading, the letters may fall on our eyes, our words may fall on our ears, which escape our attention since our minds are intent on other things, but later the mind recovers, shifts its course, and follows up every detail that had been neglected. And this is the meaning of the saying, mind has sight and mind has hearing. Everything else is deaf and blind, indicating that the impact on eyes and ears brings no perception if the understanding is not present. For this reason, why does my voice keep doing that? What? I can't talk normally when I'm reading this. What is happening to me? And it... For this reason, also King Cleomenes, when a recital made at a banquet was applauded, and he was asked if it did not seem excellent, replied that the others must judge, for his mind was in the Peloponnesus, so that if we are so constituted to have sensation, we must have understanding. Then must follow that all creatures which have sensation can also understand. I like that that's just to explain people get distracted sometimes, and animals probably do too. But let us grant that sensation needs... What? Okay, this is just saying let us say that this is such the case. Okay, but let us grant that sensation needs no help of intelligence to perform its own function. Nevertheless, when a perception that has caused an animal to distinguish between what is friendly and what is hostile is gone, what is it that from this time on remembers the distinction, fears and the painful and the most... and the what? I'm gonna back up a bit. When the perception that has caused an animal to distinguish between what is friendly and what is hostile is gone, what is it that from this time on remembers the distinction, fears the painful, and wants the beneficial? And if what it wants is not there, what is there in animals that devises means of acquiring it and providing lairs and hiding places, both traps for prey and places of refuge from attackers? And yet those very authors rasp our ears by repeatedly defining in their introductions purpose as an indication of intent to complete. Design. Okay, now sentence continues. And yet those very authors rasp our ears by repeatedly defining in their introductions purpose as an indication of intent to complete, design as an impulse before an impulse, preparation as an act before an act, and memory as an apprehension of a proposition in a past tense of which the present tense has been apprehended by perception. For there is not one of these terms that does not belong to logic, and the acts are all present in all animals, as of course are cognitions, which while inactive they call notions, but when they are once put into action, concepts. And though they admit that emotions, one and all, are false judgments and seeming truths, it is an extraordinary that they obviously fail to note many things that animals do, and many of their movements that show anger or fear, or so help me envy or jealousy. They themselves punish dogs and horses that make mistakes, not idly, but to discipline them. They are creating in them, through pain, a feeling of sorrow which we call repentance. No pleasure that is received through the ears is a means of enchantment. All that which comes through the eyes is a kind of magic. They use both kinds against animals, for deer and horses are bewitched by pipes and flutes, and crabs are involuntarily lured from their holes by lotus pipes. It is also reported that shad will rise. Shad's a fish, by the way. It is also reported that shad will rise to the surface and approach when there is singing and clapping. The horned owl again can be caught by the magic of movement, as he strives to twist his shoulders in delighted rhythm to the movements of men dancing before him. They don't have shoulders. They can't do that. Or at least I'm pretty sure they can. Their neck is weird, by the way. Owls. You know what? I'm just gonna fucking double check real quick. Well, no, they probably have shoulders. Can they shrug their shoulders, though? Like, they can move their head and make it look like they're shrugging if they, like, move their body up and keep their head in the same position, but that's not the same as shrugging your shoulders. That's moving the rest of your body, not moving your head. Like, I know they shake their heads and stuff, but they can't turn 360 degrees, it's 270. But for the rest of it, they can just turn their body. Alright, nothing came up when I searched that, so I'm just gonna say no for now. As for those who foolishly affirm that animals do not feel pleasure or anger or fear or make preparations or remember, but that the bee, as it were, remembers, and the swallow, as it were, prepares her nest, and the lion, as it were, grows angry, and the deer, as it were, is frightened. I don't know what they will do about those who say that beasts do not see or hear, but as it were, hear and see that they have no cry, but as it were, nor do they live at all, but as it were, for these last statements, or so I believe, are no more contrary to plain evidence than those that they have made. I can feel the sass and the as it were's repeating over and over again. Does my mouse show up on the capture? I should probably make sure that is not the case. Actually, no, it's probably better if you do. You can see my mouse. Properties. Capture cursor, yeah, that's on. Okay. Okay, back to Soccerus. Wow, Autobus, you just, like, ranted for 6 minutes to my face about what we were talking about yesterday. You mind shutting up? I'm sorry. That did feel a bit one-sided, I'll be honest. I kind of expected them to switch back sooner. Well, Articulus, you may count me also as one who believes your statements, yet on comparing the ways of beasts with human customs and lives, of human actions and manner of living, I find not only many other defects in animals, but this especially. They do not explicitly aim at virtue, for which purpose reason itself exists, nor do they make any progress in virtue or have any bent for it, so that I fail to see how nature can have given them even elementary reason, seeing that they cannot achieve its end. Okay, here. They're really saying reason exists in the human sense. Intelligence exists in the human sense. I hate to break it to them, but animals don't have that level of intelligence. But they still have intelligence. That's the thing. And this is where the argument happens, because it's just semantics that they don't clear up. Is this it? Is this it? Is this literally it? I have a feeling that's it. I mean, the end point is basically just saying that every animal, land, sea, whatever, has some form of intelligence. The summary that one guy wrote kind of said that, if I remember correctly. So let's continue from Audibilis. But neither does this, Socrates, seem absurd to those very opponents of ours, for while they postulate that love of one's offspring is the very foundation of a social life and administration of justice, and observe that animals possess such love in a very marked degree, yet they assert and hold that animals have no part in justice. Now mules are not deficient in organs, they have in fact genitals and wombs that are able to use them with pleasure, yet cannot attain the end of generation. Consider another approach. Is it not ridiculous to keep affirming that men like Socrates and Plato are involved in vice no less vicious than that of any slave you please, that they are just as... Am I back? OBS just disconnected that. Yeah, I'm sure that's a good thing. Well, it seems like I'm back. I like how it cut as soon as I ran into a word I couldn't pronounce as soon as I saw it. Anyways, that they are just as foolish and interpret and unjust, and at the same time to stigmatize the alloyed and imprecise virtue of animals as absence of reason rather than as its imperfection or weakness. In this, though, they acknowledge that vice is a fault of reason, and that all animals are infected with vice. Many, in fact, we observe to be guilty of cowardice and intemperance, injustice and malice. He then who holds that what is not fitted by nature to receive the perfection of reason does not even receive any reason at all, is in the first place no better than one who asserts that apes are not naturally ugly, or tortoises naturally slow for the reason that they are not capable of possessing beauty or speed. In the second place, he fails to observe the distinction which is right before his eyes. More reason is implanted by nature, but real and perfect reason is the product of care and education. And this is why every living creature has the faculty of reasoning. But if what they seek is true reason or wisdom, not even man may be said to possess it. For as one capacity for seeing or flying differs from another, hawks and cicadas do not see alike, nor do eagles and partridges fly alike. So also not every reasoning creature has in the same way a mental dexterity or acumen that has attained to perfection. For just as there are many examples in animals of social instincts and bravery and ingenuity in ways and means and in domestic arrangements, so, on the other hand, there are many examples of opposite, injustice, cowardliness, stupidity, and the very factor which brought about our young men's contest today provides confirmation. It is on an assumption of difference that the two sides assert, one that land animals, the other that sea animals are naturally more advanced toward virtue. This is also clear if you contrast hippopotamuses with storks. The latter support their fathers while the former kill them in order to consort with their mothers. The same is true if you compare doves with partridges, for the partridge cock steals the eggs and destroys them since the female not... That is true, by the way. While the female has eggs, they will not mate, and the male wants to pass on specifically their genes, so they kill off the eggs so that the female will want to mate again. And usually the ones that are successful in this are the ones that tend to be better at killing things, aka hunting for food and stuff like that. That is nature's way of having, what was it? Natural selection, I think, is might be the proper term for that. I don't know. I am going off of a lot of assumptions there, so I might be wrong on that. But it is just like they want to pass on their genes kind of thing, so they'll do that. Whereas male doves assume a part in the care of a nest, taking turns in keeping the eggs warm and being themselves the first to feed the fledglings. And if a female happens to be away for too long a time, the male strikes her with his beak and drives her back to her eggs or squabs. And while Antipater was reproaching asses and sheep for their neglect of cleanliness, I don't know how he happened to overlook lynxes and swallows. For the lynxes dispose for excrement by concealing and doing away with it, while swallows teach their nestlings to turn tail and void it themselves outward. Why, moreover, do we not say that one tree is less intelligent than another as a sheep is by comparison with a dog, or one vegetable more cowardly than another as a stag is by comparison with a lion? Is the reason not that, just as it is impossible to call one immovable object slower than another, or one dumb thing more mute than another? So among all the creatures to whom nature has not given the faculty of understanding, we cannot say one is more cowardly or more slothful or more intemperate, where it is to say there is the presence of understanding of one kind of animal of another kind in another, and in varying degree that has produced observable differences. I need to stop doing that when I pick up the pace. Oh, I need to stop doing that. But yeah, it is a fairly good point. There's no way in hell, like, if you're just comparing, like, animals that fly, even within that whole subsection, you will find varying degrees of everything. Just for land animals, you will find varying degrees of everything. For aquatic, you will find varying degrees of everything. Even in plants, you will find varying degrees of everything. And the way their evolution has created solutions for problems that they have had depending on whether the climate, their predators, what eats them, their location, whether that be the terrain that they're on or what's around them. Evolution just does its thing where it makes up a solution for whatever problem they may be facing, whether it may be harsh conditions that will eventually kill them, whether it be it's too hot or too cold. Because there is adaptations for local foes, there's also adaptations for predators, depending on what they may be. Plants have their own defenses, other animals have their own defenses, and the defenses adapt depending on what those predators are, and maybe, there's also adaptations to get food, whether that be the plants having a nutrient deficiency, depending on where they're growing. It might have a fungal partner that helps it find nitrogen. Those are interesting. As for other animals, whether they be eating plants or insects or whatever, they have adaptations for being able to easily eat them, and then those animals that they eat or plants will then get adaptations to resist that as best they can, and vice versa, and it keeps going. It just keeps going. In case you were wondering why invasive species are such a bad thing, or why they don't get countered that quickly, it's because of how long evolution needs to actually have something happen. And like if you find something that's like perfectly tailored to hunt something, but it's located in a different region, and then you move it into that region, it will have zero fucking the prey will have zero fucking chance to adapt in time, and the other thing will reproduce like fucking crazy. And the other animals in that area will probably not hunt it because they're not used to seeing it there. They don't know if they can eat it or not, most likely. Either that or they don't know if they want to mess with it or not, because they've never seen it before. Sometimes, though, it might depend on the animal, or if, like, they find a carcass there, they'll learn that, hey, the insides are pretty good. Maybe we could try hunting it, or if some young gets ambitious and tries to hunt one, they can find out, hey, it's free game, or maybe I don't want to fuck with this thing ever again. And yeah, it goes like 50-50 at that point, depending on what the invasive species is. Back to reading. Socrates. Yet it is astonishing how greatly man surpasses the animals in his capacity for learning and in sagacity and the requirements of justice and social life. Autobus. There are in fact, my friend, many animals which surpass all men, not only in bulk and swiftness, but also in keen sight and sharp hearing. But for all that man is not blind or crippled or earless, who can run less swiftly than deer, and see of less keenly than hawks, nor has nature deprived us of strength and bulk, even though by comparison of an elephant and a camel, and also like apes that can just fucking crush humans very quickly if they wanted to. Gorillas, a lot of animals. I know they already mentioned deer, but that's another one. Cows, pigs, a good chunk of birds, owls, hawks, good chunk of fish too. It also helps that the fish can do that because, you know, if we're just in the water with like, on like a small dinghy or something, you're super fucked if a fish wants you dead. They just capsize the thing. But also there's a lot of underwater animals that can just screw you over. There's also a lot of plants that can screw you over just because you're not supposed to touch them. One of which is like that one plant in Australia that has neurotoxins in it. And not only is it neurotoxins, but it injects it into you with silicone-based needles. And because it's made out of silicone, it won't decompose. And because how thin they are, it'll just get stuck underneath your skin, and every time you move, it'll eject more neurotoxin into you, and you'll just continuously feel pain. Over and over again. What fucking happened for nature to develop that? Silicone-based needles of neurotoxin. It's probably some elephant or something. And it has to be a large animal. There's no way in hell, like, that amount of neurotoxin or whatever was meant for the system of an animal that's, like, even remotely close to a human size or smaller. Where did I leave off? Right, by comparison with the elephant and the camel, we amount to nothing in these matters. In the same way, then, let us not say of beasts that they are completely lacking in intellect and understanding, and do not possess reason even under understanding is less acute and their intellect inferior to ours. What we should say is that their intellect is feeble and turbid, like a dim and clouded eye. And if I do not expect that our young men learned and studious as they are would very shortly present us here, one with a large collection of examples drawn from the land, the other with his from the sea, I should not have denied myself the pleasure of giving you countless examples of a docility and native capacity of beasts, of which fair Rome has provided us a reservoir from which to draw in pails and buckets. As it were from the imperial spectacles. Let us leave this subject, therefore, fresh and untouched for them to exercise their art upon in discourse. There is, however, one small matter which I should like to discuss with you quietly. It is my opinion that each part and faculty has its own particular weakness or defect or ailment, which appears in nothing else as blindness in the eye, lameness in the legs, stuttering in the tongue. There can be no blindness in an organ which is not created to see, or lameness in a part which is not designed for walking. Nor would you ever describe an animal without a tongue as stuttering, or one voiceless by nature as inarticulate. In the same way, you would not call delirious or witless or mad anything that was not endowed by nature with reason or intelligence or understanding, for it is impossible to ail where you have no faculty of which the ailment is a deficiency or loss or some other kind of impairment. Yet certainly you have encountered mad dogs, and I have known of mad horses. And there are some who say that cattle and foxes also go mad. But dogs will do, and since no one questions the fact in their case, which provides evidence that the creature possesses reason, and a by no means despicable intellectual faculty. What is called rabies and madness is an ailment of that faculty when it becomes disturbed in disorders, for we observe no derangement either of a dog's sight or of their hearing. Yet just as when a human being suffers from melancholy or insanity, anyone is absurd who does not admit that it is the organ that thinks and reasons and remembers which has been displaced or damaged. We habitually say, in fact, of madmen, that they are not themselves, but have fallen out of their wits. Just so whoever believes that just so whoever believes that rabid dogs have any other ailment than an affliction of a natural organ of judgment and reason and memory, so that when this has become infected with disorder and insanity, they no longer recognize beloved faces and shun their natural haunts. Such a man, I say, either must be disregarding the evidence, or if he does not know, if he does take note of the conclusion to which it leads, must be quarreling with the truth. Back to Socrates. Your inference seems quite justified, for Stoics and Peripatetics strenuously argue on the other side to the effect that justice could not then come into existence, but would remain completely without form or substance, if all the beasts partake of reason. For either we are necessarily unjust if we do not spare them, or if we don't take them for food, life becomes impracticable or impossible. In a sense, we shall be living the life of beasts once we gave up the use of beasts. I admit the numberless hosts of nomads and troglodytes who know no other food but flesh. As for us who believe our lives to be civilized and humane, it is hard to say what pursuit on land or sea, what aerial art or refined and living is left to us if we are to learn to deal innocently and considerately with all creatures as we bound to have possessed reason and are one of stock of us. So we have no help or cure for this dilemma, which either deprives us of life or itself of justice, unless we do preserve that ancient limitation of law by which, according to Hesiod, he who distinguished the natural kinds gave each class its special domain. To fish and beasts and winged birds allowed, licensed to eat each other for right, exists among them, right he gave to men. For dealing with each other, those who know nothing of right action toward us can receive no wrong from us either. For those who have rejected this argument have left no path, either broad or narrow, by which justice may slip in. Now back to Autobolus. This, my friend, has been spoken from the heart. We certainly must not allow philosophers to know there were women in difficult labor to put a... What the fuck? Put about their necks a charm for speeder that so they may bring justice to birth for us easily and without hard labor. For they themselves do not concede to Epicurus for the sake of the highest considerations, a thing so small and trifling as the slightest deviation of a single atom which would permit the stars and living creatures to slip in by chance. What the fuck? It's saying don't try and use an easy solution that doesn't work so that you can do your thing without having to think or feel pain or anything. Is that what I'm getting? Is that what they're getting at? I think that might be it. I just wasn't expecting women in labor trying to get a quick and painless delivery to be their way of explaining that. Okay. But seeing that they bid him demonstrate, what? But seeing that they bid him demonstrate whatever is not obvious or take as his starting point that something is obvious, how are they in any position to make this statement about animals a basis of their own account of justice, when it is neither generally accepted nor otherwise demonstrated by them? For justice has another way to establish itself, a way which is neither so treacherous nor precipitous, nor is it a route lined with the wreckage of obvious truths. It is the road which, under the guidance of Plato, my son and your companion Socrates, points out to those who have no love of wrangling, but are willing to be led and to learn. For certain it is that Empedocles and Heraclitus accept as true the charge that man is not altogether innocent of injustice. When he treats animals as he does, often and often do they lament and exclaim that against nature, declaring that she is necessity and war, and that she contains nothing unmixed and free from tarnish, that her progress is marked by many unjust inflictions. As an instance say, even birth itself springs from injustice, since it is a union of mortal with immortal, and the offspring is nourished unnaturally on members torn from the parent. These strictures, however, seem to be palatably strong and bitter, for which there is an alternative, an inoffensive formula which does not on the one hand deprive beasts of reason, yet does on the other preserve the justice of those who make fit use of them. When the wise men of old had introduced this, gluttony joined luxury to cancel and annul it. Pythagoras, however, reintroduced it, teaching us how to profit without injustice. There is no injustice, surely, in punishing and slaying animals that are antisocial and merely injurious, while taming those that are gentle and friendly to man and making them our helpers in the tasks for which they are severally fitted by nature. So you enslave the nice ones and then kill the evil. Is that what I'm getting here? Making them our helpers in the tasks in which they are severally fitted by nature. You are born for this, you will do it. What? I mean, that sounds like Rome. I remember my friend who knows more about Rome telling me about their philosophy on how to slaves worked and shit like that, and their opinion on intelligence, or how the color of your skin determines your intelligence and strength, and how they were the perfect mix between them because they were lightly tanned and they were superior and shit like that. I think it was Rome. Or was it Greece? I'm pretty sure it was Rome. But, you know, that is ignoring a lot of other things that happen at the same time. It's like, if you're bulky, or if you're darker skin, you're more bulky and therefore deserve to do slave work, ignoring the fact. Yeah, and if you had more intelligence, you're probably lighter skin, and you were like an aristocrat or something, and, you know, most of the Romans who were tanned were in between, and... Wait. Or wait, no, was it the other way around? I think it was the other way around, where if you had lighter skin, you were musclier, and if you had darker skin, you were more intelligent. It was one way or the other, because was it not something, I think my friend mentioned something about them finding, or when they eventually got news of the technology in Africa, they found that they had stuff that they'd never seen before. And this fit with your theory that, you know, one shade of skin was more intelligent than the other, which also reinforced their beliefs that they were in the perfect middle ground. I think that was it? This is very hazy. I'm going off of a conversation me and my friend had like more than a year ago. So, it was something like that. But, it just disregards how a person can be an aristocrat that's highly intelligent and then become a slave because they went bankrupt or something, and then you can work your way out of that position. You're not destined to do some shit because your skin color. It's really dumb. Or any preconceived notion of your intelligence or strength. It's really dumb. It's really dumb. I'll be honest, I don't know how they didn't see that sooner. Maybe they did and they just didn't do anything about it. I don't know. Where the fuck did I leave off? Something Pythagoras. However, right. Offspring of horses and ass and the seed of bulls, which Aeschylus Prometheus says that he bestowed on us, to serve us and relieve our labors. And thus we make use of dogs and sentinels, and keep heads of goats and sheep that are milked and shorn. For living is not abolished nor life terminated when a man has more platters of fish or pâté de foie gras, or mincemeat of beef or kid's flesh for his banquets. Kids referring to goat kids, not actual kids, I'm assuming. Oh, and every time they mention asses, they're referring to donkeys, by the way. Or at least I assume so. Or mincemeats or beef or kid's flesh for his banquets, or when he no longer idling in the theater or is hunting for sport compels some beasts against their will to stand their ground and fight, while he destroys others which have not the instinct to fight back even in their own defense. For think sport should be joyful in between playmates who are merry on... I don't mean to screw there. On both sides, not the sort of which Bion spoke, when he remarked that boys that throw stones at frogs for fun, but the frogs don't die for fun, but in sober earnest. Just so in hunting and fishing, men amuse themselves with the suffering and death of animals, even tearing some of them piteously from their cubs and nestlings. The fact is that it is not those who make use of animals who do them wrong, but those who use them harmfully and heedlessly and in cruel ways. Socklers, restrain yourself, Audiblus, and turn off the flow of these accusations. I see a good many gentlemen approaching who are hunters, and you will hardly convert them, and you needn't hurt their feelings. Audiblus, thanks for the warning, Abutus. However, I know quite well, and my cousin Arston, Acides, and Arstonius here, and the sons of Dionysus of Delphi and Lysander, the son of Euphidamus, and all of them, expert, as Homer expresses it, in the chase by land, and for this reason they will be on Aristomus' side. So too yonder comes Phaedamus of islanders and coastalers about him, Heracleon from Megara, and the Euboean Philostratus, whose heart saw deeds of the sea. And here is my contemporary Octavius, like the Diomedes. It is hard to tell the side on which he ranges. For with many a trophy from the sea, many likewise from the chase. On the mountain he is glorified, the goddess who is at once the huntress and dictator. It is evident that he is coming to join us with no intention of attaching himself to either side. Or am I wrong, my dear Octavius? I don't know. And supposing that you will be an impartial and neutral umpire between the young men. Off to him now. It is just as you suppose, Autobulus, Solon's law, which used to punish those who adhered to neither side in a factious outbreak, has long since fallen into disuse. Back to Autobulus. Come over here then, and take your place beside us so that if we need evidence, we shall not have to disturb the tomes of Aristotle. We may follow you as expert and return a true verdict on arguments. Off to Socklers. Well then, my young friends, have you reached any agreement on procedure? Off to Phaedamus now. Here have Socrates, though it occasioned considerable controversy, but at length, as Euripides has it, Velot, the child of chance, made arbiter, admits into court the case of a land, animals before that of creatures from the sea. Socrates, the time has come then, Aristodemus, for you to speak and us to hear. I need water. Do I still have some? My throat's dying, man. Fuck. How long have I been reading? It's been like 50 pages later. I mean, cut that in half because, you know, some of them are in Greek. Or half of them are in Greek. I've been going for an hour. Okay. Just an hour, huh? Yeah, whatever. I need to de-rust. I used to be able to talk for quite a while. Oh boy. You know what? Let's use this as a chance to roast the voice a little. I can just chat normally, because I can actually take breaks in between my sentences. Over the past week, I may or may not have downloaded the PVZ free beta, or whatever it was. If you want the PVZ Evolve, or whatever it's called, the one I'm merging, I may or may not have found something very busted, and that is called Level 9 Devastator. Because it gets you back to potato mines, but you could just fuse into another one. Random health is also pretty busted, until it gets to the point where it doesn't one-shot bucket heads. Once you get to that point, you kind of need something else to help it out, otherwise it just gets eaten because it has a cooldown between its attacks. But it's also very good because it just it gives you back half of its cost when it goes away. Goes away from using all its attacks, not by getting eaten. And then Lightning Reed is also kind of just busted. It's just so cheap, and it covers multiple lanes. And I do also have like a level 11 sunflower and a level 9 twin sunflower. And I'm just waiting on getting enough seed packets. I have like 35 currently. I need 50 to upgrade it to level 10. Because that's the barrier for getting the ability. I also do actually need to get the XP for that, which will probably happen from the pass. Well, battle pass that they installed. I mean, I am getting 30 XP per level, so maybe it won't take that long. It's like 6 levels. I have some already. Yeah, XP is the main bottleneck for upgrading your plants, not gold or money or whatever it's called. I still have a ton of the money left. I assume it's because of the money you get from your daily meter thing, as well as your Zen Garden. You just get more, even with all the pass XP that you get, you just don't go through it quick enough. Yeah, XP is the main limiting factor with the current version. Although I've only been playing for a few days. I think I've technically been playing for 4 days right now. Today would be the 5th, but I haven't logged on yet, and there's also no reason for me to. I've done all my dailies. Yesterday night. Since it resets at like 6 or 8. I think it's 6 and resets at. Yeah. Also the items for the Zen Garden, they have the pricing. I mean, you don't need more than that, but I figured they'd make it at least like 100 or something. OBS just disconnected and reconnected, cool. Well, doesn't matter unless they increase the size. About that. Unless they increase the size of a Zen Garden and how many plants you can plant per day, it won't matter. It really won't. Especially with how fast energy recharges and the amount you get per job. I got to Group A finals and then proceeded to place third, which is somehow worse than Group B finals. I am very pissed that I didn't at least get second. Because I got drafted due to luck, and I can't believe that they made the finals a single match in the game where you're trying to go for an average best because RNG could screw you over. They decided to make it, you get one shotter and nothing else. I can't believe they thought that was a good idea. Like, are you kidding me? Really? I don't know how to do the reward system after all this stuff. Somehow I got into Group A for finals. My win rate is terrible. Like, it's genuinely awful. I accidentally got into Group A for Section B, the second part of the Gas Pro. And yeah, that tanked my win rate. I accidentally paused the music. That tanked my win rate from... it was about 40% before, it tanked it down to about 20%. It literally halved. Yeah, my win rate before I wasn't even that good. Which is sad, considering the Cancer Cup provides an interesting situation in which if you got lucky as a free-to-play, or if you paid money, you are doing leagues better than everyone else. And
it's just due to the nature of the cup being near the start of the game, such that free-to-plays still don't have a chance to have the necessary cards and resources built up over time to match up with people that just, opened up their wallet. You need stats. If you have maxed cards, you require less turns to get those stats. Those turns that you are now not using can be used to race the game or skill points. Those skill points can be used to spend on skills. Not only do people that spend money have an easier time getting their stats, they will also have more skills than you. The Cancer Cup heavily, it heavily thinks about both of those things. Which means if you only have stats that are not only worse than your opponents, because you have to run a suboptimal deck team and hit max speed, and required amount of other stuff in the process, and then you just have some amount of skills, whatever you picked up along the way. Meanwhile, the other people have basically the best stats possible and double the amount of skills you do. It's like, well, what the fuck do I do besides try and get lucky? It is pay to gamble better, and yeah, obviously I probably won't be doing as bad once I actually, spend the rest of my cards on another support card banner. But because I'm free to play, I can't just do it on any banner. I have to try. I have to pick and choose a banner that actually has a good SSRs on it, so it's worth. Other than that, I'm just hoping to max out my SR cards. There's two speed cards that I was using, Asian Flash and Sweet Tosho, both of which are only have 1 LB on them, which is why they suck so much, but they're still better than everything else that I have. But the difference between having a max LB and 1 LB is so fucking huge. So much so that if I want to max speed, I don't have to run 5 speed cards. I can run 3. Just run Kita-san Black and Sweet Tosho and Asian Flash, you can get away with that. And then obviously you can stack onto with cards because you want to build that as well. Or if you're empowered, you can do that as well. But generally, you just do get stamina. You do power during summer trainings, and you have stamina sparks off of your inspirations, and if you're doing a front run, obviously you have groundwork in there too. It's, yeah. And that's another thing about the stat, having the max LB cards that lets you get stats easier. It also means you don't need to bring as many cards, which lets you bring in other cards to help you get the other things you're missing, which also means you get a heck. It's not linear. I wouldn't say it's exponential either, but it's increasing, right? The amount you gain increases the more you have. It goes to you get stats easier. You get your other stats easier, but you might be missing or lacking a little bit of. 2, you get more skill points. 2, you demolish everyone because you paid money. Alright. I feel like my throats are covered a little bit. I also just realized I ranted for 20 minutes about that. Alright. Yes, alright. Aristotemus. The quarters for Litigons. There are some fish that melt for pursuing a female while she was laying their eggs. There's also a type of mollusk called the grayfish, which feeds on its own slime. The octopus sits through the winter devouring this. Careless home and does no more. So lazy or insensible bloodeds are guilty of all these charges at sea. So this also is the reason, again, why Plato is lands and children are prey died so that they might not be seized by a love for sea hunting. There is no exercise of brain for your training and skill for anything that contributes to showing completeness or agility when men endure toil and contests. ass or a conure a paraplegic, whereas in the chase on land, brave animals can chase, they can play their courageous and danger-loving qualities unless urged against them. Crafty animals sharpen the wits and cunning of their attackers, while swift ones train the strength and perseverance of their pursuers. Their qualities are generally hunting and normal sport wars, there's nothing glorious about fishing. No, there's not a god, my friend has allowed himself to be called the content killer, as Apollo is the wolf slayer, or Sir Mullen slayer as Artemis is deer slaying, and what is surprising is, when it's a more glorious thing for a man to have caught a boar snag or someone be a gazelle or a hare to take a buckle. It's your tummy and your mackerel over your bonito. You know what bonito is? There's more honor, They're more honorable to buy than to catch oneself, but a lack of spirit or any kind of resource or cunning has made the sport dishonorable and fashionable and illiberal. In general, then, the evidence by which the philosophers demonstrate that beasts have the shared reason in their possession of purpose, and their preparation of memory and emotions, and care for the young, and gratitude for benefits and hostility to what has hurt them, to which may be added their ability to find what they need and their manifestations of good qualities, such as courage and sociability and continence and magnanimity. Let us ask ourselves if marine creatures exhibit any of these traits or have some suggestion of them, that is extremely faint or difficult to discern. The observer only coming at long last to an opinion that it may be desired, whereas in the case of terrestrial and earthborn animals, it is easy to find remarkably plain and unanswerable proofs of every one of the points I've mentioned. I can find a lot of holes in that. Mainly due to the fact that they cherry-picked which ocean animals that they're talking about, and well, let's be honest, there's a bunch of land animals you wouldn't be proud about catching. Oh wow, I hunted a squirrel. Oh, you hunted a raccoon? Oh, you caught a rat? Congratulations! Also, this is about the cleverness of animals, and once again, it boils down to, wow, even just within land animals, you're gonna have a lot of varying of everything. In animals in general, you're gonna have varying amounts of everything. In aquatic animals, you're gonna have varying amounts of everything. And they're just cherry picking everything. There's no point in this. Like, if this was an actual debate, there's no point in having this fucking debate. Absolutely no fucking point. In the first place, men behold the purposeful demonstrations and preparations of bulls, stirring up dust when intent on battle, and wild boars whetting their tusks, since elephants' tusks are blunted by wear, when by digging or chopping they fell the trees that feed them. They only use one tusk for this purpose to keep the other always pointed and sharp for defense. Lions always walk with paws clenched and claws retracted so that these may not be dulled by wearing the point, or leave a plain trail for trackers, for it is not easy to find any trace of a lion's claw. On the contrary, any sign of a track that is found is so slight and obscure that hunters lose the trail and go astray. You have heard, I am sure, how Dick Newman girds itself for battle as poorly as any soldier putting on his armor. Such a quantity of mud does it dawn and plaster on its body when it plans to attack the crocodile. Moreover, we see house martins preparing for procreation. How well they lay the solid twigs at the bottom to serve as a foundation, then mold the lighter bits around it, as if they perceive that the nest needs a lump of mud to glue it together. They skim over a pond or lake, touching the water with only their tips of their feathers to make them moist, yet not heavy with dampness. Then they scoop up dust and so smear over and bind together any parts that begin to sag or loosen. So the shape of her work has no angles nor many sides, but is as smooth and circular as they could make it. Such a shape, in fact, both stable and capacious, and provides no hold on the outside for scheming animals. There is more than one reason for my admiring spiders' webs, the most common model for both women's looms and fowlers' nests, for there is the fineness of a thread and the evenness of a weaving. Way has no disconnected threads and nothing like a warp, but is wrought even with the even continuity of a thin membrane and a tenacity that comes from a viscous substance inconspicuously worked in. Then too there's the blending of the colors to give it an airy, misty look, the better to let it go undetected, and most notable of all is art itself, like a charioteer's or a helmsman's, of which the spinner handles their artifice. Because apparently only orb weavers exist, I guess. I can already tell this guy's talking about an orb weaver, but I guess all the other kinds of spiders don't exist. Jumping spiders don't exist, I guess. The other spider that makes a fucking catching net doesn't exist, I guess. The one where the net's not sticky. Also, the only reason why they're ever visible with misty look is in the morning when dew catches on it, because that's how the webs rehydrate and keep their stickiness. I'm gonna get pissed at all of our arguments, aren't I? That's totally gonna happen.
That's absolutely going to happen. Alright. When a possible victim is entangled, she perceives it and uses her wits like a skilled handler of nets to close the trap suddenly and make it tight. Since this is daily under our eyes and observation, my account is confirmed. Otherwise, it would seem a mere fiction, as I formerly regarded the tale of a Liberian crows, which when they were thirsty throw stones into a pot to fill it and raise the water until it was within their reach. But later, when I saw a dog on board ship, since the sailors were away putting pebbles into a half-empty jar of oil, I was amazed at its knowing that lighter substances are forced upward when the heavier settle to the bottom. Similarly, tales are told of cretin bees and of geese in Sicilia, and the bees are going to round some windy promontory. They blast themselves with little stones as to not be carried out to sea, while the geese, in fear of eagles, take a large stone in their beaks and every day cross Taurus, as it were reining in and bridling their giggling Cassidy, that they may pass over in silence unobserved. It is well known too how cranes behave when they fly. Whenever there is a high wind or rough weather, they do not fly as on fine days in line abreast or in a crescent-shaped curve, but they form at once a compact triangle with a point cleaving the gale that streams past, so that there's no break in the formation. That is not the point of a formation. The point of a formation is that it gives a wind boost to the people, to the birds that are on the side of them. That's how it's designed. Everyone benefits off of the person in the front. It's not to cleave the wind, it's to get the updraft off of the other one's flapping wings. There's a difference. I know to some people it might not seem like there's a difference there, but there's a difference. When they have descended to the ground, the sentinels to stand watch at night support themselves on one foot, and with the other grasp a stone and hold it firmly. The tension of grasping this keeps them awake for a long time, but when they do relax, the stone escapes and quickly arouses the culprit. So that I'm not at all surprised that Heracles tucked his bow under his arm, embracing it with mighty army sleeves, keeping his right hand gripped about the club. Nor again am I surprised that the man who first guessed how to open an oyster when I read of ingenuity of herons, for they swallow a closed muzzle and endure the discomfort until they know it has been softened and relaxed by their internal heat. They then disgorge it wide open and unfolded and extract the meat. It is impossible to relate to full detail all the methods of production and storage practiced by ants, but would be careless to omit them entirely. Nature has, in fact, nowhere else so small a mirror of greater and nobler enterprises, just as you may see greater things reflected in a drop of clear water. So among ants there exists a delineation of every virtue, love and affection are found, namely their social life. Really? Really? Oh, I guess it is Rome, huh? You may see, too, the reflection of courage under persistence and hard labor. There are many seeds of temperance and many of prudence and justice. Now, Cleanthes, even though he declared that animals are not endowed with reason, says that he witnessed a falling spectacle. Some ants came to a strange anthill carrying a dead ant. Other ants had emerged from the hill and seen those two were to both converse with the first party, even when went back again. This happened 2 or 3 times until at last they brought up a grub to serve as the dead ant's ransom. Whereupon the first party picked up the grub, handed over the corpse, and departed. The matter obvious to everyone is the consideration ants show when they meet. Those that bear no load always give way to those who have one and let them pass. Obvious also is the manner in which they gnaw through and dismember things that are difficult to carry or to convey past an obstacle, in order that they make easy loads for several, and Aratus takes it to be a sign of rainy weather when they spread out their hands and cool them in the open. seem to not write eggs here, but provisions in the sense of stored grain. When they notice there is growing mildew, and fear that it may decay and spoil, they bring it up to the surface, but what goes beyond any of our conception of our intelligence is their anticipation of a germination of wheat. You know, of course, that wheat does not remain permanently dry and stable, but expands and lactifies in the process of germination. In order then to keep it running to seed and losing its value as food, and to keep it permanently edible, the ants eat out the germ from which springs the new shoot of wheat. I do not approve of those who, to make a complete study of ant hills, inspect them as it were anatomically, but be that as it may, report that the passage leading downward from the opening is not at all straight or easy for any of our creatures to traverse. The passage returns and twists of branching tunnels connecting galleries, and terminates in free hollow cavities. One of these is their common dwelling place and ever serves as a store for provisions, while in the third they deposit dying. Or think that... Okay, fine. How long is this? Oh boy. I don't suppose that you will think it out of order if I introduce elephants directly on top of ants in order that we may concurrently scrutinize the nature of understanding of both the smallest and largest of creatures, for it is neither suppressed in the latter nor deficient in the former. Let others then be astonished that elephants learn, or are taught, to exhibit in the theatre all the many postures and variations of movement that they do, these being so varied and so complicated to memorize and retain that they are not at all easy even for human artists. For my part, I find the beast's understanding being better manifested in its own spontaneous and uninstructed feelings and movements, in a pure, as it were, and undiluted state. I like how they don't talk about zebras at all, and how they basically can't be tamed at all. Or how jumpy they are. Well, let's see. Well, not very long ago at Rome, where a large number of elephants were being trained to assume dangerous stances and wheel about in complicated patterns. One of them, who was the slowest to learn and was always being scolded and often punished, was seen at night, alone by himself in the moonlight, voluntarily rehearsing his lessons and practicing them. Formerly in Syria, Hagedon tells us an elephant was brought up in its master's house and every day by the keeper, and when he received a measure of barley, would filch away an appropriate half of it. But on one occasion, when the master was present and watching, the keeper poured out the whole measure. The elephant gave a look, raised his trunk, and made 2 piles of barley, setting aside half of it, and thus revealing as eloquently as could be the dishonesty of a keeper. And another elephant, whose keeper used to mix stones and dirt in its barley ration when the keeper's meat was cooking, scooped up some ashes and threw them into the pot. And another in Rome, being tormented by little boys who pricked its proboscis with their writing styluses, grabbed one of them and raised him into the air as if to dash it to death, and when the spectators cried out, they gently set the child down on the ground again and passed along, thinking it sufficient punishment for one so young to have been frightened. Like, that's an assumption. You don't know that. This is an assumption. You're just applying this. You don't know that. I can't believe this. Concerning wild elephants who are self-governing, they tell many wonderful tales, particularly the one about the fording of rivers. The youngest and smallest volunteers his services to go first into the stream, never swim on the bank, and observe the result, for if his back remains above the water, those that are larger than he will have a wide margin of safety to get their confidence. At this point in my discourse, I imagine that I shall do well not to omit the case of a fox, since it is so similar. Now the storybooks tell us that when Duke Halion released a dove from the ark. As long as she returned, there was a certain sign that the storm was still raging, but as soon as she flew away, it was a harbinger of fair weather. So even to this day, the Thracians, whenever they propose crossing a frozen river, make use of a fox as an indicator of the solidity of ice. Fox moves aside slowly and lays her ear to the ice. She perceives the sound that the stream is running close underneath. Judging that the frozen part has no great depth, but is only finite and secure, she stands stock still, and as she is permitted, returns to the shore. But she is reassured by the absence of noise, she crosses over. And let us not declare that this is the nicety of perception, unaided by reason. It is rather a logic. Conclusion developed from the evidence of perception. What makes noise must be in motion. What is in motion is not frozen. What is not frozen is liquid. What is liquid gives way. What is not frozen is not liquid. Solids can be not frozen. I hate to break this to you. You skipped a step. So logicians assert that a dog at a point where many pests foot off makes use of multiple distinct arguments. Okay. This is just gonna make me angry reading all this. Either the wild beast has taken his path or this or this. He surely has not taken this or this, but it must have gone by the remaining road. Perception here affords nothing but the minor premise, while the force of reason gives the major premises and adds the conclusion to the premises. The dog, however, does not need such a testimonial, for it is both false and fraudulent, for it is perception itself by means of track and spoor, which indicates the way the creature fled. It does not borrow of disjunctive and copulative propositions. The dog's true capacity may be discerned from many other acts and reactions into performance of duties which are neither to be smelled out nor seen by the eye. It can be carried out or perceived only by the use of intelligence and reason. I should only make myself ridiculous when I describe the dog's self-control and obedience and sagacity on hunting parties to you and who see and handle these matters every day. There was a Roman named Calamus, slain in civil wars, but no one was able to cut off his head until they encircled and stabbed to death the dog who guarded his master and defended him. And King Ferris, on a journey, chanced upon a dog guarding the body of a murdered man. In answer to his questions, he was told that the dog had remained there without eating for 3 days and refused to leave. Ferris gave orders for a corpse to be buried, and the dog cared for and brought along in his tray. A few days later, there was an inspection of a soldiers who marched in front of a king seated on his throne while the dog lay quietly by his side. When it saw its master's murderers filing past, it rushed at them, furious barking, and as it voiced its accusation, turned to look at the king, so that not only he but everyone present became suspicious of the men. They were at once arrested and put to question with the help of some bits of external evidence as well. They confessed to murder and were punished. I'm totally sure they didn't use advanced interrogation techniques. The same thing is said to have been done by the poet Hesed's dog, which convicted the sons of Gangster Malpactician, by whom Hesed had been murdered, but a matter which came to the attention of our fathers when they were studying at Athens, even plainer than anything so mentioned. Certain fellows slipped into the temple of Asclepius. Asclepius, huh? Okay. Took such gold and silver offerings as were not bulky and made his escape thinking that he had not been detected. But the watchdog, whose name was Caparus, when none of his Christians responded to its barking, pursued this escaping temple thief. First, the man threw stones at it but could not drive it away. When day dawned, the dog did not approach close but followed the man, always keeping him in sight, and refused the food he offered. When he stopped to rest, the dog passed a night on guard. When he struck out again, the dog got up and kept following, fawning on other people it met on the road and barking at the man and sticking to his heels. When those who were investigating the robbery learned from this men who had encountered the pair and were told the color and size of the dog, they pursued all the more vigorously and overtook the man and brought him back from Cramion. On the return, the dog led the procession, capering and exultant, as though it claimed for itself the credit for pursuing and capturing the temple thief. The people actually voted it a public ration of food and trusted the charge of this to the priest in perpetuity, thereby imitating the ancient Ephesian kindness to the mule. But when Pericles was building the Hecatompedon on the Acropolis, stones were naturally brought by numerous teams of draught animals every day. Now one of the mules who had assisted gallantly in the work had been discharged because of old age. He used to go down every day to the Ceramicus and meet the beast which brought the stones, turning back with them and trotting along by their side, so to encourage and cheer them on. So the people of Athens, admiring its enterprise, gave orders for it to be maintained at the public expense, voting at free meals as though to an athlete who had succumbed to old age. Therefore, those who deny that there is any kind of justice owed to animals by us must be conceded to be right so far as marine and deep-sea creatures are concerned, for these are completely lacking in amiability, apathetic, and devoid of all sweetness of disposition. Ignore all the fucking temples to the sea in anywhere else that's not Rome. I can think of a lot off the top of my head. I'm not gonna bother going through them all. Also ignore the fact that if you're doing fishing on a boat out on the sea, you have to deal with the ocean itself fighting you. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I said this already, and I'm gonna say it again, because I have no other way to express this, and I want to express it. Because it's gonna keep making me angry, and I need to vent this somehow. They keep cherry picking everything. I'm gonna hate this so much. Also, all of these descriptions of animals, so it's like, you know, it did so as if it was human, and they're just characterizing it. Bitch, you're just assuming such is the case. It did this action. Well, I could see that as being a human thing, so therefore it is. No, fucking isn't. Just say it did the action. Like, come on. Oh, wait, I just realized I'm on the next page already. It would have been... yeah, this. As vote to claim itself to credit. And it led to possession, capering an exultant. Maybe it's happy because they gave it treats afterward and they just put it in front because they figured it would be a nice symbol. Oh wait, all of those things would have been dictated by humans then. Ew, I wonder why. It's almost like you can make anything happen if you omit things and assume things. Wow. And there's no way for us to know if this is real or not. Absolutely no way. Unless there's other records, but I'm probably not gonna find this. Okay. Let's see. Sorry for these are completely... okay, and well did... okay. And well did Homer say the great green sea bore you, with reference to a man regarded as uncivilized and unsociable, implying that the sea produces nothing friendly or gentle, but a man who would use such speech in regard to land animals himself cruel and brutal. Perhaps you will not admit that there was a bond of justice between... No, I think that's just people being rude to each other, and wanting a way to insult each other. Like, come on. Okay. This is just pets doing pet things. Well, I'm sorry, most aquatic animals don't have legs. Like, come on. Alright, so yeah, it's just the same thing happening 3 times with different animals. Wells in a sad state itself did not give up until it perceived that the danger was gone. King had lost much blood and was slipping off. No, it's just pets being pets, dude. Okay. So it's just... it is easier to make land animals pets than aquatic animals. That's his argument. There's more. They relate further that the champion of Indian dogs, one greatly admired by Alexander, when a stag was let loose and a boar and a bear lay quiet and still and disregarded him. But when a lion appeared, it sprang up at once to prepare for the fray, showing clearly that it just to match itself with the lion and scorned all the others. Or maybe it didn't give a shit, and then once one came that could actually... wait, let loose a stag, a boar, and a bear. And then a lion. Oh, I don't know, maybe because the lion's the only one that might actually try and eat the dog, so therefore has to prepare itself to defend itself. Oh, I don't fucking know. Like, come on. Hounds that hunt hares, if they themselves kill them, enjoy pulling them to pieces and eagerly lap up the blood. But if, as frequently happens, a hare in desperation exhausts all its breath in a final sprint and expires, the hounds, when they come upon it dead, will not touch it at all, but stand there wagging their tails as much as say that they do not strive for food, but for victory and the honor of winning. Seriously. Animals that were in great stress before dying have the meat tense up a lot. They're probably waiting for rigor mortis to take place, if I'm being honest. Or waiting a little bit before they pull it to pieces. Because if they're able to get the jump on it and it doesn't run away, they effectively ambush it and, you know, get it on the neck or whatever and instantly dies. The meat will be rather tender. Which is great for, it's easier for the consumption. Otherwise, no. At that point, I'm more iffy on. I don't know the exact details on that. There are many examples of cunning, but I shall dismiss foxes and wolves and the tricks of Arain and Daw, for they are obvious, and shall take from my witnesses' tales. The most ancient of the wise men, not the least of those whose claims to admiration, they say, his was getting the better of a mule by a trick. For one of the mules that were used to carry salt on entering river, accidentally stumbled, and since the salt melted away, it was free of its burden when it got up. I recognized the cause of this, and bore it in mind. Okay. So if you have a bag with salt in it and you soak it in water, I hate to break it to you, that's not gonna be enough to dissolve a lot of the salt. Like, it doesn't like evaporate. That's not how that works. I hate to break it to you, that's not how that works. That's just not how that works at all. Not to mention how fucking concentrated the salt is if you have it in a bag. Like, you can drop that in water and you will see it drift off. Or like in a river, you'll see it drift off. It won't fucking dissolve that quickly. It'll have to get maybe like 5 minutes down the river, it'll finally dissolve to a point where you can barely see it. For it to dissolve to the point for it to seep through the bag, also we're ignoring the fact that their bag doesn't also get soaked with water. I'm also assuming that, well, because the trick is, okay, so obviously clearly dipping it, yeah, because it's just dipping it in water after a second time, so yeah, none of that should work. That's just and my ears ringing. Great. This is what stress does. I'm getting stressed from reading fucking Plutarch. Oh god. Partridges exhibit another piece of cunning, combined with affection for their young. They teach their fledglings who are not yet able to fly to lie on their backs in their pursuit and to keep above them as a screen some piece of turf or rubbish. The mothers meanwhile lure the hunters in another direction and divert attention to themselves, fluttering along at their feet and rising only briefly until, by making it seem that they are on the point of being captured, they draw them far away from their young. They do that in general, not just from hunters. That's also a very dangerous thing, the fake injury that they do. Do they teach their young to actually hide themselves like that? I don't know. Uh, Also, I like how this is like, oh wow, our land animals care for their young. And then we're ignoring all the land animals that don't care for their young. Like, there's a lot of animals that just say, fuck it, you're on your own after you're born. Like, if you come from an egg, they'll protect the egg. They won't protect you after you hatch. There's a lot of animals that do that. And, well, if you're a mammal, mammals tend to stick by their parents for quite a while, in comparison to those ones. But even some of them, they grow up pretty quickly, or they leave their parents' side pretty quickly. Especially when you compare it to humans. Or for them, you'd probably be by your parents' side until about 13, 15-ish. 13, 14, 15, something like that. Because this is Rome from, all the way back then. When hares return for a repose, they put to sleep their leopards in quite different places. Sorry. Often as much as 100 feet apart, so that if man or dog comes near, they should not all be simultaneously in danger. And what do you have to say about deer herds? Because if something comes along, they're all simultaneously in danger. It doesn't matter if they're all simultaneously in danger, only one of them's gonna die. If it's an animal, in that case, if it's like a dog or something. Only one of them's gonna die. What do I have to say about deer herds then? Like, come on. The hares themselves run to and fro and leave tracks in many places, but last of all, if a great leap, they leave their traces far behind, and so to bed. The she-bear, just prior to the state called hibernation, before she becomes quite torpid and heavy and finds it difficult to move, cleans out her lair, and when about to enter, approaches it lightly and inconspicuously as possible, treading on tiptoe, then turns around and backs into the den. Hinds are inclined to bear their young beside a public road where carnivorous animals do not come. And stags, when they observe that they have grown heavy by reason of their fat and surplus flesh, vanish and preserve themselves by hiding when they do not trust to their heels. The way in which hedgehogs defend and guard themselves has occasioned a proverb. The fox knows many tricks, but the hedgehog one big one. When the fox approaches, as Simon says it, curling its spiny body in a coil, it lies still, impregnable to touch or bite. Ignore the fact that you can just tip it over and get it from the bottom. Bird the hedgehog makes for its young is even more ingenious. When autumn comes, it creeps under vines with its paws and shakes down to the ground grapes in front of bed bunches and... Wait, no. Am I thinking of a porcupine or hedgehog? I think I'm thinking of a porcupine. Down to the ground, grapes from the branches, and having rolled about in them, gets up with them attached to its quills. Once when I was a child, I saw one creeping or walking with a bunch of grapes, and it goes down into its hole and delivers the load to its young for them to enjoy and draw rations from. There has two openings, one facing the south and another the north. When they perceive that the wind will change, like good skippers who shift sail, they block the entrance which lies to the wind and opens the other. And a man in Sisyphus, observing this, acquired a reputation of being able to predict unaided which way the wind would blow. Elephants, as Juba declares, exhibit a social capacity joined with intelligence. Hunters dig pits for them, covering them with slender twigs and light rubbish. When accordingly any elephant of a number traveling together falls into others, bring wood and stones and throw them in to fill them up. Excavations are common and can easily get out. We also released that without any instruction, elephants pray to the god. What? Purifying themselves in the sea, and when the sun rises, worshipping it by raising their trunks of their hands in supplication. Seriously? Seriously, this is what we're bringing into conversation as burden and proof? Is... Oh my god. And not just animal behavior. Ah yes, it must be praying if they raise their trunks in the morning. It must be. They looked up. That's totally a prayer, right? Seriously? Um, for this reason, their animal most loved by the gods, as Ptolemy Philopator has testified for when he had vanquished and Antiochus and wished to honor the gods in a really striking way. Among many offerings to commemorate his victory in battle, he sacrificed 4 elephants. Thereafter, since he had dreams by night in which the deity angrily threatened him because of that strange sacrifice, he employed many rites of appeasement and set up as a votive offering 4 bronze elephants to match those he had slaughtered. Seriously? Social usages are to be found no less among lions. For young lions, take along with them to the hunt. Be old and slow. When the latter are tired out, they rest and wait while the young lions hunt on. If they have taken anything, they summon others by roaring like the bleat of a calf. The other ones hear it at once and come to partake in the comment of the prey. The loves of some animals are wild and furious, while others are refined, which is not far. I mean, they don't really feed their young that well. Lions. Since it's always the head of a pack that gets first dibs and they tend to eat the most, which just means the young get scraps. Human intercourse conducted with much grace, such was the elephant which at Alexandria played the rival to Aristophanes, the grammarian. They were in fact in love with the same flower girl, nor was the elephant's love the less manifest as he passed by the market. He always brought her a fruit and stood beside her a long time and would insert his trunk like a hand within her garments gently. I'm sorry, what? I'm not reading that page out loud. I'm not reading novel one out loud either. I'm reading this one in advance before I decide how I read it. Okay, I'll be honest, my throat is kind of dying. I'm gonna skip this one too, and I'll resume after they stop talking about the J. Still, I believe I should not pass over one example at least of a dog's learning, of which I myself was a spectator at Rome. The dog appeared in a pantomime with a dramatic plot and main characters, and conformed in its acting at all points of the acts and reactions required by the text. In particular, they experimented on it with a drug that was really soporific, but supposed in a story to be deadly. The dog took the bread that was supposedly drugged, swallowed it, and a little later appeared to shiver and stagger and nod until it finally sprawled out later like a corpse, letting itself be dragged and hauled about as the plot of a play prescribed. But when it recognized from the worse than action that the time had come, it first began to stir slightly as though recovering from a profound sleep, lifted its head and looked about. Then, to the amazement of the spectators, it got up and proceeded to the right person to fawn on him with joy and pleasure, so that everyone, and even Caesar himself, for the aged of Vespasian was present in the theater of Marcellus, was much moved. Basically, they just timed the dose so that it would wake up at the right time. Also, even if it was just trained to do so, this is just... Can you train a zebra to do the same thing? Wow, you're cherry picking a lot, aren't you? I am going to say that a lot, aren't I?
Yet perhaps it is ridiculous for us to make a parade of animals distinguished from learning when Democritus declares that we've been their pupils in matters of fundamental importance, of a spider in weaving and mending, and of a swallow in home building, of a sweet-voiced swan and nightingale and our imitation of her song. Further, of a free divisions of medicine, you can discern in animals a generous portion of each. For it is not cured by drugs alone of which they make use. After devouring a serpent tortoises, take a desert of marjoram and weasels of rue. Dogs perch themselves on bilious by a certain kind of grass. The snake sharpens or restores its fading sight with venom. When the she-bear comes forth from her lair, the first thing she eats is wild arum, for its acridity opens her gut, which has become constricted. And over times when she suffers from nausea, she resorts to anthills and sits, holding out her tongue, all running in juicy sweet liquor until it is covered with ants, then she swallows and is alleviated. The Egyptians declare that they have observed and imitated the Elister-like purging of herself with brine, and the priests make use of water from which an ibis has drunk to purify themselves, for if the water is tainted or unhealthy in any way, that ibis will not approach it. Then, too, some beasts cure themselves by a short fast, like wolves and lions, who, when they're surfeited with flesh, lie still for a while, basking in the sun. And when they say a tigress, if a kid is given her, will keep fasting for 2 days without eating. On the third, she grows hungry and asks for some other food. She even pull her cage to pieces, but will not touch the kid, which she now has come to regard as a fellow boarder or roommate. Yet again, they relate that elephants employ surgery. They do in fact bring aid to the wounded, by easily and harmlessly drawing out spears and javelins and arrows without any laceration of the flesh. And Cretan goats, when they eat dittany, easily expel arrows from their bodies, and so have presented an easy lesson for a woman with children to take heart to heart. Just to take to heart that the herb has an abortive property. And for there's nothing except dittany that the goats, when they are wounded, rush to search for. Okay. These matters, though wonderful, are less surprising that there are creatures which have cognition and number and can count, as do the cattle near Susa, and that the place they irrigate the royal park of water raised in buckets by wheels, and a number of bucketfuls is prescribed, for each cow raises 100 bucketfuls each day, and more you could not get from her, even if you wanted to use force. In fact, they often try to add to the number to see the cowpox will not continue once she has delivered her quota. So accurately does she compute and remember the sum, as Ctesias of Cnidus has related. The Libyans laugh at the Egyptians for telling a fabulous tale about the oryx, that let out a cry at the very day and hour when the star rises that they call Sophis, which we call the dog star or Sirius. At any rate, when the star rises flush with the sun, practically all the goats turn around and look toward the east. And this is most certain sign of its return to Greece, most exactly the tales of mathematical calculation. Are they not just looking at the sun? But that my discourse, it says it rises flush with the sun. Are they not just looking at the sun, or are they looking at the star? Choose one. I know they said it's a star, but somehow I think it's more likely that they're looking at the sun. But that my discourse may add its finishing touch and terminate, let me make the move from the sacred line and say a few words about the divine inspiration and mantic power of animals. It is in fact no smaller ignoble division of divination, but a great and very ancient one, which takes its name from birds. For their quickness of apprehension and their habit of responding to any manifestation so easily or they diverted serves as an instrument for the god, who directs their movements, their calls, or cries, and formations which are sometimes contrary, sometimes favoring as winds are so, that he uses some birds to cut short, others to speed enterprises, and exceptions to the destined end. It is for this reason that Euripides calls birds in general heralds of the gods, and in particular Socrates says that he considers himself Thales as swans. So again, among monarchs, Pharis likes to be called an eagle, and Antichrist a hawk. When we deride or rail at stupid, ignorant people, we call it fish. Really, we can produce cases by the thousands of signs or portents or manifested to us by the gods through creatures of land and air, but not one such can advocate for all aquatic creatures. Seriously, you're just gonna... So basically, I'm gonna make up a reason why this animal is used by God to verify that, but we can't say the same about fish.
Ignore the fact that it was also created by God. At least, or a god, because everything in our world is created by gods. Or at least it should be. It's Roman mythology. Pretty sure that's the case. No, they're all deaf and blind so far as foreseeing anything goes, and so I've been fast decided to Gallus. The Titanic region is into limbo, is still unblessed, where the rational, intelligent part of the soul has been extinguished. Having, however, only a last remnant sensation that is clogged with mud and deluged with water, they seem to be at their last grasp, rather than alive. Heracleon, raise your brows, dear Phaedomus, and rouse yourself to defend a sea folk, the island dwellers. This bout of argument has become no child's play, but a hard-fought contest, a debate which lacks only the actual bar and platform. Phaedomus, not so Heracleon, but an ambush laid of malice after. A forethought has been disclosed while we are still tipsy and sad from yesterday's bout. This gentleman, as he has attacked us of premeditation, cold sober, yet there can be no begging off. Devotee of Pindar, for I am, I do not want to be addressed of a quotation. To excuse oneself when combat is offered has consigned valor to deep obscurity, for we have much leisure, and it is not our discourse that will be idle, but our dogs and horses, our nets and signs of all kinds, for a truce is granted for today because of our argument to every creature, both on land and sea. Yet do not fear, I shall use it with moderation, introducing no opinions of philosophers or Egyptian fables or unattested tales of Indians or Libyans. Yeah, so he is ragging on them, got it. Those facts that may be observed everywhere and have as witnessed the men who exploit the sea, acquire their credit from direct observation. Of these I shall present a few. Yet there is nothing to impede illustrations drawn from land animals. The land is wide open for investigation by the senses. The sea, on the other hand, grants us but a few dubious glimpses. True, they do not have access to deep sea exploration at this point. They can only ride on top of her. Why did I say it like that? They can only ride on top of the sea. Fuck. Why did I say that? She draws a veil over the birth and growth, the attacks and reciprocal defenses of most of her denizens. Among these, there are no few feats of intelligence and memory and community spirit that remain unknown to us and so obstruct our argument. Then, too, land animals, by reason of their close relationship and their cohabitation, have to extent been imbued with human manners. Yeah, to some extent have been imbued with human manners, projected, more like, but yes. They have the advantage of our breeding and teaching and imitation, which sweetens all their bitterness and sullenness, like fresh water mixed with brine. But our lack of understanding and dullness are roused to life by human contacts, whereas the life of sea creatures being set apart by mighty balance and intercourse of men and having nothing adventitious or acquired from human usage is peculiar to itself, indigenous, and uncontaminated by foreign ways, not by distinction in nature, but of location. For their nature is such as to welcome and entertain such instruction as reaches them. That it is that renders many eels tractable, like those that are called sacred at Erefusa, and in many places there are fish, which will spawn to their own names. As the story goes of Crassus Moray, upon the death of which he wept. I like you said he wasn't going to bring in tales, he's immediately bringing in tales. Upon the death of which he wept, when Dominus said to him, "Isn't it true that when you wept, Moray died?" He answered, "Isn't it true you buried 3 wives and didn't weep?" The priest crocodiles not only recognized the voice of those who summoned them and allowed themselves to be handled, but opened their mouths to let their teeth be cleaned by hand and wiped with towels. Recently, our excellent Philinus came back from a trip to Egypt and told us he had seen an Anteopolis, an old woman sleeping on a low bed beside a crocodile which was stretched out beside her in a perfectly decorous way. It's not a skin. It's totally not a skin. I'm sure it's not. It could have been a real crocodile, but maybe it could also be a skin. They have long been telling the tale that when King Ptolemy summoned the sacred crocodile, and it would not heed him or obey him in spite of entreaties or requests, it seemed to the priest an omen of his death, which came about not long after. Once it appears that the race of water creatures is not wholly unendowed with your precious gift of divination.
Indeed, I've heard that near Sura, a village in Lycia between Phelis and Myra, men sit and watch the gyrations of plates and pursuits of fish, and divine from them by professional and rational systems others do of birds. Let these examples suffice to show us that sea animals are not entirely unrelated to us or cut off from human fellowship of our uncontaminated and native intelligence. Their caution is strong evidence. For nothing that swims and does not merely stick or cling to rocks is easily taken or captured without trouble by man, as are asses by wolves, bees by bee eaters, cicadas by swallows, and snakes by deer, which easily attract them. This, in fact, is why deer are called elephoi, not from their swiftness, but from their power of attracting snakes. So too, Varan draws the wolf by stamping, and they say that very many creatures, some particular apes, are attracted to the panther by their pleasure in its scent. But in practically all sea creatures, any sensation is suspect and evokes an intelligently inspired defensive reaction against attack. So fishing has been rendered no simple or trivial task, but needs all manner of implements and clever and deceitful tricks to use this against a fish. This is perfectly clear from the examples. No one wants to have an angler's rod too thick, though it needs elasticity to withstand the thrashing of such fish as are caught. Hence, like to have a slender rod so that I may not cast a broad shadow and arouse suspicion. In the next place, they do not thicken the line of many plies. When they attach the loop, they do not make it rough, for this too betrays the lure to the fish. They also contrive that the hairs which form the leader shall be as white as possible, for this way they are less conspicuous in the sea because of a similarity of color. The mark of a poet. Like lead, she sank into the great sea depths, like lead infixed in horn of rustic ox, which brings destruction to the ravenous fish. Some misunderstood this and imagined that the ancients used ox hair for the lines, alleging that keras mean hair, and for this reason, kerastai means to have one's haircut, and kora is a haircut, and keroplastes and Hercules is one who was fond of trimming and beautifying the hair. This is not so. They use horsehair, which is take for males, for mares by wetting the hair and their urine, make it weak. Aristarchus declares that there is nothing erudite or subtle in these lines. The fact there's a small piece of horn was attached to a line in front of a hook, since the fish, when they're confronted by anything else, chew the line. God, my voice is just dying. And 2. They use rounded books to catch mullets and bonitos whose mouths are small, for very wary of a broader hook. Often indeed the mullet suspects even a rounded hook and swims around it, flipping the bait with its tail and snatching up bits it has dislodged. If it cannot do this, it closes its mouth and pursues it up with the tips of its lips, nibbles away at the bait. The sea bass is braver than your elements. It is not from another, but from himself without assistance, that he extracts the barb when he is caught by the hook. He swings his head from side to side to widen the wound, enduring the pain of tearing his flesh until he can throw off the hook. The fox shark does not often approach the hook and shuns the lure, but if he is caught, he immediately turns himself inside out. For by reason of elasticity and flexibility of his body, he can naturally shift and twist about so that when he is inside out, the hook falls away. Now, the examples I've given indicate intelligence and an ingenious, subtle use of it for opportune profit, but there are others that display a combination of understanding, the social sense, and mutual affection, as is the case of a barbier and a parrotfish. For if one parrotfish swallows the hook, the others present swarm upon the line and nibble it away. And the same fish, when any of their kind have fallen into the net, give them their tails from outside. When they eagerly fix their teeth in these, the others pull in them and bring them through in tow. And barbiers are even more strenuous in rescuing their fellows, getting under the line with their backs. They erect their sharp spines and try to saw the line through and cut it off with a rush edge. What do barbiers look like? Let's see. No, I'm looking for the fucking fish, not a barber, but French. Is he just referring to a barbfish? Because this thing does not look like it could saw through jack shit with its fin. Yet we know of no land. Oh yes, please reconnect. Okay, thanks. Amash is far-fetched and dictates as it were that we are to leave it on a king's prescription, that is, on the wits of Juba.
Supposedly, it too be true. It merely proves that many sea creatures are in no way inferior in community spirit and intelligence to the wisest of land animals. Also, another point about the elephants, ignore the fact that the woolly mammoths went extinct to people hunting them by basically just building pitfalls and then, you know, pointlessly stabbing it from above constantly. Ignore that fact.
I'm not going to be able to talk after this stream. I'm not going to be able to talk for a while.
Now, fishermen. Oh wait, no. As for their sociability, I shall soon make a special plea on that topic. Now, fishermen, observing that most fish evade the striking of a hook by such countermoves as wrestlers use, resorted, like the Persians, to force and use the dragonet. As for those caught in it, could be no escape with the help of reason or cleverness. For mullet and rainbow wrasse are caught by casting nets and round nets, as are also the bream, and the sarguin, the goby, and the sea bass. The so-called net fish, that is surmullet, and gilthead and sculpin are caught in seines by trawling, and accordingly it was quite correct for Homer to call this kind of net a catch-all. Codfish, like bass, have devices even against these. When the bass foresees that the trawl is approaching, it forces them butt apart and hammers in a hollow in the bottom. When it has made enough room to allow the net to overrun it, it thrusts itself in and waits until the danger is past. Now when the dolphin is caught and perceives itself to be trapped in a net, it bites its time, not at all disturbed, will it please for a piece without stint on the fish that gathered the trouble to itself. But as soon as it comes near the shore, it bites its way through the net and makes it escape. Yet, if it should not get away in time, on the first occasion it suffers no harm. The fisherman merely so rushes to its crest and let it go. But if it is taken a second time to recognize it from the scene and punish it with beating, this rarely occurs, as most dolphins are grateful for their pardon the first time and take care to do so no harm in the future. I will say that dolphins are rather smart in comparison to most animals. Further, among the many examples of wariness, precaution, or evasion, we must not pass over that of a cuttlefish. There's the so-called mitis behind the neck, full of black liquid, which they call ink. Cuttle, yeah, it'll look like that. When it is come upon, it discharges the liquid to the purpose that the sea shall be inked out in great darkness around it, while slips through and eludes the fisherman's gaze. In this it imitates Homer's gods, who often in a dark cloud snatch up and smuggle away those whom they are pleased to save. But enough of this. As for cleverness in attacking and catching prey, we may perceive subtle examples of it in many different species. The starfish, for example, knowing that everything with which it comes in contact dissolves and liquefies, offers its body, and is indifferent to the contact of those that overtake or meet it. As you know, of course, the property of a torpedo, not only does it paralyze all those who touch it, but even the net that creates a heavy numbness in the hands of trawlers. Some who have experimented further with it report that if it is washed ashore alive and you pour water on it from above, you will perceive the numbness mounting to the hand and dulling your sense of touch. That's not how it works either. The water which said, okay. The so-called fisherman is not to many, he gets his name from his actions. Aristotle says that cuttlefish also makes use of his stratagem. He lets down like a fishing line a tentacle from his neck, which is actually designed to extend to a great length when it is released, or so to be drawn to him when it is pulled in. So when he espies a little fish, he gives it the feeler to bite, and then, by degrees of imperceptibility, draws it back to himself until the prey attached to the arm is within reach of his mouth. As for the octopus's changes of color, Pindar has made it celebrated in the words, "To all the cities to which you resort, to bring a mind like the changing skin of a sea beast." And fairness likewise, be minded like the octopus's hue, the color of its rock will meet the view. The chameleon, to be sure, is metachromatic, but not from any designer's desire to conceal itself. It changes color uselessly from fear, being naturally timid and cowardly. I don't know, trying to stay alive? Is that cowardly? Trying to stay alive involves not getting killed and feeding yourself. Not starving. Ah. Both of these, both sides of argument are pissing me off a lot. For nearly the whole body of a creature is occupied by its lungs, which show it to be full of air imported. But yeah, no shit, the lungs are full of air. And for this reason, easily move to change color, but the same action on the part of octopus, not an emotion. How is that an emotional response for a chameleon? I don't get it. I'm missing something here. But a deliberate change, since it uses this device to escape what it fears and to capture what it feeds on. By this deceit, it can both seize the latter, which is not tried to escape, and avoid the former, which proceeds on its way. Not a story that it eats on its own tentacles a lie, but it is true that it feeds the moray and the conger. It is in fact maltreated by them, for it cannot do them harm since they slip from its grasp. On the other hand, when the crawfish has once got them in its grasp, it wins the victory easily, for smoothness is no aid against roughness, yet when the octopus has once thrust its tentacle inside the crawfish, the latter succumbs, and so nature has created this cycle. And succession of mutual pursuit and flight as a field for the exercise of competitive practice of adroitness and intelligence. We have, to be sure, heard Aristotemus telling us about the hedgehog's foreknowledge of the winds, and our friend also admired the V-shaped flight of cranes. I can produce no hedgehog of Sizium or Byzantium, but instead the whole body of sea hedgehogs, which when they perceive that storm and surf are coming, they'll last themselves with little stones in order to that they may not be capsized by reason of their own lightness or be swept away by the swell, maybe, but may remain fixed in position for the weight of their little rocks. What the fuck is a sea hedgehog? It's a sea urchin. Bro. I would not call this thing a sea hedgehog. Oh, urchin is an old name for a hedgehog, apparently. I see. Again, the crane's change of flight against the wind is not merely the action of one species. All fish generally have the same notion and always swim against a waving current. Taking care that a blaster in the rear does not fold back their scales and expose and roughen their bodies. For this reason, they always present the prow of their bodies to the waves, for in that way, head first, they cleave the sea. Which depresses their gills and flowing smoothly over the surface, keeps down instead of ruffling up. The bristling skin, they have scales, bro. Now this, as I've said, is they have skin under their scales, but it would hit the scales first. Now, this, as I've said, is common to all fish except the sturgeon, which they say swims with wind and tide and does not fear the harrowing of its scales, since the overlaps are not in the direction of a tail. The tunny is so sensitive to equinox and solstice that it teaches even men themselves about the need of astronomical tables, for wherever it may be when the winter solstice overtakes it. In that same place it stands and stays until the equinox. So a clever device of a crane, the grasping of a stone by night, so that if it falls, she may awake from sleep. How much cleverer, my friend, was the artifice of a dolphin, for whom it is illicit to stand still or to decrease her motion. For its nature is to be ever active. The determination of its life and its movement is one and the same. When it needs sleep, it rises to the surface of the sea and allows itself to sink deeper and deeper on its back, while to rest by the circulation of a ground swell until it touches the bottom. Once roused, it goes whizzing up, and when it reaches the surface again, goes slack, devising for itself a kind of rest combined with motion. And they say that tunnies do the same thing for the same reason. Having just a moment ago given you account of a tunny's mathematical foreknowledge of a reversal of the sun, of which Aristotle is a witness, I beg you to hear the tale of her arithmetical learning. The first, I swear I must mention their knowledge of optics, of which Aeschylus seems not to have been ignorant, for these are his words, squinting the left eye like a tunny fish. They indeed seem, they seem indeed to have poor sight in one eye, and it's for this reason that when they enter the Black Sea, they hug one bank on the right and the other when they're going out. It is being very prudent and sagacious of them to always to entrust the protection of themselves to the better eye. Now, since they apparently need arithmetic to preserve their consociation and affection for each other, they have attained such perfection in learning, since they take great pleasure in feeding and schooling together. They always form the school into a cube, making it altogether a solid figure with a surface of 6 equal plane sides, and they swim under way, preserving their formation on square faces. What the fuck are these arguments? Both ways, certainly who are watching, Bertonius who counts the exact number of the surface at once makes known the total number of the shoals, since he knows that the depth is equal to 1 of the breadth and the length. Ignore the fact that tunnies also aren't square themselves, so you need to do different calculations for each, but whatever.
Certainly a whore, watching for tunnies, who counts the exact number on the surface at once makes known the total number of a shoal, since he, I just read that. Schooling giver is also given the Bonitos the name of Amia, and I think this is true of year-old tunnies as well. As for other kinds which are observed to live in shoals and mutual society, it is impossible to state their number. Let us rather, therefore, proceed to examine those that have a special partnership, that is symbiosis. One of these is the Pinagard, over which Chrysippus spilled is a very great deal of ink. Indeed, has a reserved seat in every single book of his, whether ethical or physical. Chrysippus has obviously not investigated sponge guard, otherwise he could hardly have left it out. Now, the Pinagard is a crab-like creature, so they say, who lives in a pinna, and sits in front of a shell guarding the entrance. Allows the pinna to remain wide open and gape until one of the little fish that are their prey gets within. Then the guard nips the flesh of a pinna and slips inside. The shell is closed and together they feast on their present prey. The sponge is governed by a little creature not resembling a crab, but much like a spider. Now the sponge is no lifeless and sensitive bloodless thing, but it clings to rocks as many other animals do. This peculiar movement outward and inward, which needs as it were admonition and supervision. In any case, it is loose in texture and its pores are relaxed because of its sloth and dullness. When anything edible enters, the guard gives the signal, and it closes up and consumes the prey. Even more, if a man approaches or touches it, formed by the scratching of the guard, it shudders as it were and closes itself up by stiffening and contracting, that it is not an easy but a very difficult matter for the hunters to undercut it. The purple fish lives in colonies which build up a comb together, like bees. In this species is said to propagate, they catch edible bits of oyster green and seaweed that stick to shells and furnish each other with a sort of periodic rotating banquet as they feed one another in series. And why should anyone be surprised at the community life of these when the most unsociable and brutal of all creatures bred in river, lake, or sea, the crocodile shows himself marvelously proficient in partnership and goodwill? Seriously? It's like that meme where it's like, what was it? Least jacked person to ever exist, and it's like some guy that's ultra ripped. This is what these guys are just saying to each other about land and water animals. I woke up at 9 in the morning, and I think I'm running on... I think it's 8 hours of sleep. I feel tired still, though. Maybe it's because I'm not used to going to sleep, falling asleep that late. No, that's a total lie. I'm used to falling asleep that late. Recently, though, I haven't been, so... Maybe that's it? I don't know. Or maybe it's just previous days when I haven't been getting much sleep because I had assignments and shit to work on and studying. But hey, I finally get a break from that because I have reading week and this paper to work on. Yay! As you can tell, I'm very excited for this paper. Very excited.
Did I accidentally skip a page? Shows himself marvelously proficient at partnership and goodwill in his dealings with the Egyptian plover. The plover is a bird of swamps and riverbanks and a guard to crocodile, not supplying its own food, but as a boarder making a meal of a crocodile's scraps. Now, when it perceives that during the crocodile's sleep, the ichneumon is planning to attack it, smearing itself with mud like an athlete dusting itself for the fray, the bird awakes the crocodile by crying and pecking at it, and the crocodile becomes so gentle with it that it will open its mouth and let it in, and is pleased that the bird quietly peeks out with its bill, bits of flesh, which are caught in its teeth. Oh, pecks out. I see. And cleans them up. While it is now satisfied and wants to close its mouth, it tilts its snout upward as an indication of its desire and does not let it down until the plover, at once perceiving the intention, flies out. The so-called guide is a small fish in size and shaped like a goby, but by reason of the roughness of its scales, it is said to resemble a ruffled bird. It always accompanies one of a great whale swimming in front of it and directing its course so that it may not go around in shallows or be cut off at some lagoon or strait from which exit may be difficult. The whale follows it, as the ship obeys the helm, changing course with great docility. And whatever else, creature or boat or stone, it embraces in its gaping jaws is at once destroyed and goes to ruin, completely engulfed, but that little fish it knows and receives inside its mouth as in a haven. This is that one Pokemon combo where it's that big fish and the sushi fish. This is what this is, isn't it? Or like, this is the animals that those Pokemon are based off of. What? Why the hell do I smell popcorn? Is someone in the comment room watching movies or some shit? I know it's a Friday, and like the day before reading week starts, but can you wait one day? Actually, no, it doesn't matter if it wait or not. It's just my throat's dying and I'm pissed off reading this, so I'm just gonna say whatever. Yeah, all the vent. Oh, no, it's a fairly old building. They refurbished it and stuff, but the ventilation doesn't change. All the vents in the rooms are connected. So, like, if someone smokes in one room, you will smell it in all of the rooms. If someone decides to make popcorn, everyone will fucking smell it. If you decide to smoke weed when you're not supposed to, everyone will smell it. You're not supposed to on campus. Where was I? While the fish sleeps within, the whale remains motionless and lies by, but when it comes out again, the beast accompanies it and does not depart from it day or night, or if it does, it gets lost and wanders at random. Many indeed have been cast up on the land and perished, being as it were without a pilot. We in fact were witnesses of such mishap near Antisira not long ago. They relate that some time ago when a whale came around not far from Bolus and rotted, a plague ensued. Is it? Give me a second.
Sorry about that, guys. My roommate started talking to me. It was actually some fairly important stuff. But anyways, we're back. We'll continue reading. There's like 15 pages left. And after that, I'm probably just gonna end show. I mean, it's 4 now, so I could do like Shadowverse 2. I'll be honest, I guess I can. I wanted to start writing this today, because I don't think I'm gonna have time to work on this outside of reading week. And there's other shit I want to get done during reading week too, like making the Black Silence mask that I may have mentioned before. Have I? Where was I? Right, the play. It has been justifiable to compare with these associations and companionships those friendships which Aristotle says exist between foxes and snakes because of their common hostility to the eagle, or those between bustards and horses because the former like to approach and pick over the dung. As for me, I perceive even in ants or bees no such concern for each other. It is true that every one of them promotes the common task, yet none of them has any interest in or regard for his fellow individually. And we shall observe this difference even more clearly when we turn our attention to the oldest and most important of social institutions and duties, those concerned with generation and procreation. Now, in the first place, those fish that inhabit a sea that borders on lagoons or seas, rivers resort to these when they are ready to bust their eggs, seeking the tranquility and smoothness of fresh water, since calm is a good midwife. Besides, lagoons and rivers are devoid of sea monsters so that the eggs and fry may survive. This is the reason why the Black Sea is the most favored for spawning by very many fish. It breeds no large sea beasts at all, except an infrequent seal and a small dolphin. Besides, the influx of rivers and those which empty into the Black Sea are numerous and very large. It creates a gentle blend, conducive to the production of offspring. The most wonderful tale is told about the amphibious, which Homer calls sacred fish. Yet some think that sacred means important, just as we call the important bone, or sacrum. In epilepsy, an important disease, the sacred disease, others interpret it as the ordinary sense of meaning, dedicated, or consecrated. Eratosthenes seems to refer to the gilt head when he says swift, coarser, golden-browed, the sacred fish. Many say that this is the sturgeon, which is rare and hard to catch, though it is often seen off the coast of Pamphylia. If any ever do succeed in catching it, they put on wreaths on themselves and wreath their boats. As they sail past, they are welcomed and honored with shouts and applause. Most authorities hold that it is the amphibious, that is, and it is called sacred. For wherever this fish appears, there are no sea monsters. Sponge fishers may dive in confidence, and fish may spawn without fear, as though they had a guarantor of their immunity. The reason for this is a puzzle, whether the monsters avoid the amphibious as elephants do a pig and lions a cock, or whether there are indications of places free from monsters which the fish comes to know and frequents, being an intelligent creature with a good memory. Then again, the care of a young is shared by both parents. The males do not eat their own young, but stand by the spawn to guard the eggs, as Aristotle relates. Some follow the female and sprinkle the eggs gradually with milk, for otherwise the spawn will not grow, but remains imperfect and undeveloped. In particular, the race makes a sort of nest of seaweed, develops the spawn, and shelters it from the waves. The affection of a dogfish for its young is not inferior in warmth and kindliness to that of any of the tamest animals, for they lay the egg, that sustain and carry the newly hatched young, not without, but within themselves, as if from a second birth. When the young grow larger, the parents let them out and teach them to swim close by. Then again, they collect them through their mouths and allow their bodies to be used as dwelling places, affording a once room and board and sanctuary until the young become strong enough to shift for themselves. Wonderful also is the care of a tortoise for the birth and preservation of her young. To bear them, she comes out of the sea to the shore near at hand, but since she is unable to incubate the eggs which remain dry on land for long, she deposits them on the strand, heaps over them the smoothest and softest part of sand. When she is buried and concealed them securely, some say that she scratches and scribbles to place at her feet, making it easy for her to recognize. Others affirm that it is because she has been turned on her back by a male, that she leaves peculiar remarks and impressions about the place. But what is more remarkable than this, she waits for the 40th day, for it has the number required to develop and hatch out of eggs, and then approaches, and each tortoise recognizes her own treasure and opens it more joyously and eagerly than a man does a deposit of gold. They don't do that. Also, are they calling sea turtles? Did I really just say sea turtles? Sea turtles. Sea turtles and tortoises are different. I'm pretty sure they're talking about sea turtles here. Terra tortoise. Tortoises live on land. Right? Not losing my mind? The accounts given of the crocodile similar in other respects, but animals' ability to estimate the right place goes beyond man's power to guess or calculate the cause. Hence, they affirm that this creature's foreknowledge is divine and not rational. For neither to a greater or less distance, but just so far as the Nile will spread that season and cover the lands in flood, just so far does she go to deposit her eggs. With such accuracy that any farmer finding eggs may know himself and predict to others how far the river will advance. And her purpose in being so exact is to prevent either herself or her eggs getting wet when she sits on them. When they are hatched, the one which upon emerging does not immediately seize in its mouth anything that comes along, fly or midge or worm or straw or plant, the mother tears to pieces and bites to death, but those that are bold and act as she loves and tends, thus bestowing her affection by judgment, as the wisest of men think right, not by emotion. Furthermore, seals too bear their young on dry land, and little by little induce their offspring to try to sea, then quickly take them out again. This they do at often intervals until the young are conditioned in this way to feel confidence and enjoy life on the sea. Frogs in their coupling use a call, the so-called ololigan, a cry of wooing and mating. When the male has thus attracted the female, they wait for the night together, for they cannot consort in the water, and during the day they are afraid to do so on land. When the darkness falls, they come out and embrace the impunity. On other occasions, when their cries shrill, it is because they expect rain, and this is among the absurdest of signs. But dear Poseidon, what an absurd and ridiculous error I have fallen into, while I am spending my time on seals and frogs. I have neglected and omitted the wisest sea creatures, the most beloved of the gods, for what nightingales are to be compared with a halcyon, for its love of sweet sound, or what swallows for its love of offspring, or what doves for its love of its mate, what bees for its skill in construction. What creature's procreation or birth pangs has the god so honored? For Leto's parturition, so as to say only one island, was made firm to receive her, but when the halcyon lays her eggs about the time of the winter solstice, the god brings the whole sea to rest, without a wave, without a swell, and this is the reason why there are no other creatures that men love more. Thanks to her, they sail the sea without a fear in the dead of a winter for 7 days and 7 nights, for the moment during the sea is safer to them than by land. If it is proper to speak briefly of her several virtues, she is so devoted to her mate that she keeps him company not for a single season but throughout the year. It is not through wantonness that she admits him to her company. She never consorts at all with any other male. It's through friendship and affection as of any lawful wife. When by reason of old age the male becomes too weak and sluggish to keep up with her, she takes the burden on herself, carries him, and feeds him, never forsaking, never abandoning him, but mounting him on her own shoulders. She conveys him everywhere she goes and looks after him, abiding with him until the end. As for love of her offspring and care for their preservation, as soon as she perceives herself to be pregnant, she applies herself to building the nest, not making pads of mud or cement to get on walls and roofs like the house martin, nor does she use the activity of many different members of her body, as when the bee employs its whole frame to enter and open the wax of all 6 feet, pressing at the same time to fashion the whole mass into hexagonal cells. The halcyon, having but one simple instrument, one piece of equipment, one tool, her bill and nothing else, cooperating of her industry and ingenuity, what she contrives and constructs would be hard to believe without ocular evidence. Seeing the object that she molds, or rather the ship that she builds in many possible forms, this alone cannot be capsized even to wet its cargo. She collects the spines of garfish and binds and weaves them together. Some straight, others transverse as issue, or thrusting woven threads through the warp, adding such bands and knots of one with another that a compact, rounded unit is formed, slightly prolate in shape like a fisherman's wheel. When it is finished, she brings and deposits it beside the surging waves, where the sea beats gently upon it and instructs her how to mend and strengthen whatever is not yet good. and tight as she observes it loosened by the blows. She so tautens and secures the joints that it is difficult even for stones or iron to break or pierce. Its the proportions and shape of a hollow interior are as admirable as anything about it, for it is so constructed as to admit herself only, while the entrance remains wholly hidden and invisible to others, with the result that not even a drop of water can get in. Now, I presume that all of you have seen this nest. As for me, since I've often seen it touched it, caused my mind to chant the words. Once such a thing in Delos near Apollo's shrine. Saw the altar of horn celebrated as one of the 7 wonders of a world because it needs no glue or any other binding, but is joined and fastened together made entirely of horns taken from the right side of the head. Now, may the god be propitious of me while I sing the sea siren, and indeed, being both a musician and an islander, he should laugh good-naturedly while my opponent scoffing questions. Why should he not be called a conch slayer, or Artemis be termed a Sir Mullet slayer, since he knows well that Aphrodite, born of sea, regards practically all sea creatures as sacred, relates to herself and relishes the slaughter of none of them. The leftist, the priests of Poseidon refrain entirely from any seafood. Of those initiated into mysteries at Eleusis hold the Sir Mullet in veneration, while the priestess of Hera at Argos abstains from this fish to pay it honor, for Sir Mullets are particularly good at killing and eating the sea hare, which is lethal to man. It is for this reason that Sir Mullets possess this immunity as being friendly and love-saving creatures. Furthermore, many of the Greeks have temples and altars to Artemis Dictina and Apollo Delphinos, and that place which God had chosen for himself, the poet says, was settled by Cretans under guidance of the dolphin. It was not, however, the god who changed the shape and swam in front of the expedition, as tellers of the tales relate. Instead, he sent a dolphin to guide the men and bring them to Curra. They also relate that Sotiles and Dionysus, the men sent by Ptolemy's daughter to Sinope to bring back Serapis, were driven against her will by violent wind out of her course below Malea, with the Peloponnesus on their right. When they were lost and discouraged, the dolphin appeared by the prow, and as it were invited them to follow and led them to such parts as had safe roadsteads, but with a gentle swell until my voice is dying. As had safe roadsteads with but a gentle swell until by conducting and escorting the vessel in this manner it brought them to Curra. Whence it came about, they had offered thanksgiving for their safe landing. They came to see that 2 of the statues they should take away, the one of Pluto, but should merely take an impress of that of Persephone and leave it behind. Well might the god be fond of music-loving characters of a dolphin, to which Pindar likens himself, saying that he is roused like a dolphin of the sea, who on the waveless deep of the ocean is moved by the lovely sound of flutes. Yet it is even more likely that its affection for men renders it dear to the gods, for it is the only creature who loves man for his own sake. Of a land of animals, some avoid man altogether, others to tame his kind, pay court for utilitarian reasons only to those who feed them, as do dogs and horses and elephants to their familiars. Martins take to houses to get what they need, darkness and minimum security. But avoid and fear man as a dangerous wild beast. To the dolphin alone, beyond all others, nature is granted what the best philosophers seek: friendship for no advantage. Though it has no need at all of any man's, yet it is a genial friend to all and has helped many. The story of Arion is familiar to everyone and widely known, and you, my friend, opportunely put us in the mind of a tale of Hesiod, but you failed to reach the end of a tale. When you told of a dog, you should have not left out the dolphins, for the information of a dog that barked and rushed with a snarl on the murderers would have been meaningless if dolphins had not taken up the course as it was floating on the sea near the Nemean and zealously passed it from group to group until they put out a short rhyme and so made it clear that the man had been stabbed. Arsalis of Lesbos tells the tale of Analus, the Aeolian who was in love with the daughter of Smintheus, who in accordance with the oracle of Amphitrite was cast into the sea by Pamphilidae, whereupon Analus himself leaped into the sea and was brought out safe on Lesbos by a dolphin. And the goodwill and friendship of a dolphin for the lad of Isis was thought by reason of its greatness to be true love, for it used to swim and play with him during the day, allowing himself to be touched. And when the boy mounted upon its back, it was not reluctant, but used to carry him with pleasure wherever he directed it to go. While all the inhabitants of Isis flocked to the shore each time it happened, once a violent storm of rain and hail occurred, and the boy slipped off and was drowned. The dolphin took the body and threw both it and itself on the land, and would not leave until it too had died, thinking it was right to share a death for which it imagined that it shared a responsibility.
In memory of his calamity, the inhabitants of Iessus have minted their coins of the figure of a boy riding a dolphin. From this, Swallowtail talks about Coranus, gained by Credence. He was a Parian by birth who at Byzantium bought and draughted dolphins, which had been caught in a net or a dangerous slaughter, and set them all free. A little later, he was on a sea voyage in a pentaconter, so they say, with 50 pirates aboard in a strait between Naxos and Peros. The ship capsized and all the others were lost. Coronaris, they relate because the dolphin sped beneath him and buoyed him up. He was put ashore at Sicinius, near a cave which is pointed out to this day, and bears the name of Coranium. It is on this man that Archilochus is said to have written the line, out of 50 kindly Poseidon left only Coranus. When later he died, his relatives were burning the body near the sea when a large shoal of dolphins appeared off the shore, so they were making a plan that they had come for the funeral, and they waited until it was completed. The shield of Odysseus had a dolphin emblazoned on it. Stesichorus also has related, and Zacynthus perpetuate the reason for it, as Criphius testifies. When Telemachus was a small boy, so they say, he fell into the deep inshore water and was saved by dolphins who came to his aid and swam with him to the beach. That was the reason why his father had a dolphin engraved on his ring and emblazoned on his shield, making this requital to the animal. And since I began by saying that I would not tell you any tall tales, since, without observing what I was up to, I have now possessed the dolphins running aground of both Odysseus and Coranus to a point beyond belief. I laid this penalty upon myself to conclude here and now. So, gentlemen of his jury, you may now cast your votes. By Aristomus. Soclaris asks for us, we have for some time held for the view of Sophocles. It is a marvel how rival sides, the strife of tongues, welds both so close together. For by combining what you have said against each other, you will put up a good fight against those who would deprive animals of reason and understanding. And that's the end of that. This is interesting. Event resources. Okay, I'm actually gonna cut it here. I could do Shadowverse dailies on stream, but my voice can't take it.
I actually can, so I'm just gonna end it here. Next week might be me polishing up my essay. Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't want to talk anymore. Yeah, I know there was a huge break in the middle because I ended up chatting with my roommate, but overall, I hope that, reading this has been an experience. There's a lot of things I didn't expect to hear today. But overall, it's very nice it's very nice to read this now, anyways, to get me started with the basis for an essay, since I need to summarize that. And it looks like there's some sources I can grab from in there as well. That'll be